how are we all doing? Apparently, I'm live. So, good evening and welcome. What a money have you spent on Black Friday? We spent a little bit, didn't we? A little bit. Right, let me know in the chat. Right, I'm going to go and try and see if I can see everybody in the chat. Do we have
is live.
Hey! Do I have a full complement of Debs? It's looking hopeful. Jonathan, number one, hello. Hello, Kim. Hello, Debbie.
Johnny cheated. He did that about 7:30.
He can cheat if he likes. He does know he can do it on a Wednesday if he wants, doesn't he? Just to make absolutely sure. Oh, hello, Neil. Hello, John.
Johnny, if you do it on a Wednesday, it won't be recorded, because my little plug-in will not record it until I switch to save chat.
Oh, actually, that's true. So it'll have happened, but what's that thing? If something falls in a forest, does it make a noise? That kind of thing. Yep.
Yeah, whatever.
If it's not recorded, did it happen, Jonathan? So, it's a very careful thing. You've got to be very careful. Right. Hello, Carol. I've got your freebies lined up for next week. I do. Don't want to miss anybody. Hello, Graham. Oh, Graham's upset with us this week, you know. We'll find that out in the week at MacBites headquarters when we moved. Hello, Peter. Deb. Second Deb. We only need one more Deb and we've got the lot. Hello, Sarah.
I don't think
Hello,
we've got the
Paul.
third Deb. We've only got two.
Oh, we've only got two Debs. We need another
We've got
Deb.
Debbie S and we've got Deb.
It'll all be here in the end. Trust me, it'll all be fine. Hello, Renee. And I think I'm done. If I've missed anybody, shout at me. Shout at me if I have missed you. Let me know. Oh, what have we got tonight? Loads. But first of all, I'm doing things slightly differently, which never ends well, does it? But it's got to be done. So we'll see if I can do that successfully for a start. So let me do that. And I'm actually right with that right now. So let's see how this works. You see, you did notice last week I was doing things slightly different, but I'm doing them even more different this week. Yeah, just for fun. Just for fun, because I can. Right, let's see if it all works. So I'm about to transfer you over, and you should see no difference at all. Ooh, thing with that is, how am I going to know? Oh, let's see if that works then. Right. Not in there it won't, will it? Right, if I go in there. This could or could not be working, it depends. It's working, it's a miracle. Excellent. Right, okay, let's get on with it. We have the week at MacBites headquarters. Might be a few interesting little snippets, you never know. Keep going in the chat, let me know. Then we've got Notion's widgets. Oh yes, Notion's widgets. I've done amazing things on my phone with Notion widgets, so let's see if I can demonstrate that with you. We'll see how that goes. You know how that usually goes. It's usually a complete nightmare. But we'll see. Then we've got Christmas in Scrivener. Then we've got Christmas in Notion. Same Christmas, just different apps. Then we've got the freebies. And then we have Power BI with Mike. And then Affinity Publisher, publishing to ePub, and more. That's got a funny story attached with it, which I'll tell you all about later. But first things first, we broadcast in HD. Make sure that you can actually see it in HD. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner, and from there, you need to choose the best quality. While you're there, if you enjoy the show, find anything useful, give us a like. It really does make a difference with YouTube. So, how did our week go? Do let us know how your week went. It all started on Saturday. Now, you know that Saturday is a busy day here. We had 9 shows on Saturday. Another 9 shows. But while that was happening, because, magic of radio, I can be in 2 places at once, I was actually busy with PowerPoint, getting myself up to speed, on account of the fact I haven't used it in anger since probably forever. I trained it, but training it is not the same as using it. So I was very busy doing LinkedIn learning courses, and I'm now fully qualified in PowerPoint. Then we went into Marooned, which is 7 o'clock, obviously. But at 8 o'clock on Saturday, somebody... Was it a diary clash, Mike?
Yeah.
Yes, sort of. Because the first thing that happened was we went straight into Brooklyn's 196 by request, where it was ladies' night. So anything went. It was a good night. It was a very, very good night. But also, in fact, yes, it was. It was ladies' night. Also at 8 o'clock, there was a football match on, and Mike wanted to watch it. However, once it was all over and done with, his words were, they made hard work of that. But while that was happening, and the radio show at the same time, it wasn't only that. No, Mike had decided two things. Yeah, easy. Let's add 3 into it, and let's get the Tesco order here. And after an absence of 3 weeks, oh, Wendy was back. Lola was very happy to greet her. Mike, less so. Did I mention the match was on? Now, Lola was very interested in Wendy. It was probably the food that she had that did that. But Lola had made sure that Mike knew she should be his only girl, if you discount me, which clearly from that she does. So she was reading the chat. She was participating, bless her. She's so adorable. Then we went on to Sunday. Sunday's generally a quieter day, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah.
A little quieter. But this time we were plotting and we were planning. Because we were plotting and planning the MacBites After Hours, MacBites Advent Calendar. Oh, it needed plotting, it did. And once we'd done that, I went into my book club, while Mike had such fun with Tesco, decided he'd bring Asda into the equation, which he did. And I think everything was tickety-boo with them, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a good Sunday. Which led to Monday, which was when this arrived. It was our first Christmas card of the year, and inside it there was a lovely gift. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? It was from All at Moore Mansions, and they said they've got one too. So ornament to hang on the tree. And handily, the tree, they've been up since May. So there to put the ornament on. Oh, I'm organised this year. But that wasn't all that happened on Monday. On Monday, I got the mail from Apple, which was, get your wish list ready, we're going to give you money. And then I read the small print. Yeah, not quite as generous as it used to be. Was it, Apple? It's £120, but it's a voucher. It's not actually cash that they're giving you. And this deal is on right now. So as long as you're buying a qualifying product, you will get this £120 voucher, which is $150. For reference, last year's Apple Store gift card was £160. So, like I say, not exactly generous, but it was announced that it was there, which meant we had all the information we needed to make decisions, which took us on to Tuesday. We've known about...
Talking of vouchers, I'm putting Tesco vouchers into the order, and I really wish I could just hold them up to the camera like you do with iTunes.
Are you like an animal typing it in?
Yeah.
Oh, poor Mike. Poor Mike. They should do that. They should make them QR codes.
They should.
They should. Yes, we've known about what was happening on Tuesday for a while. But we thought we'd surprise you. And the reason that we did this was we've done it before. And the last time we did it, we didn't tell you. We thought, who's going to notice? Oh, did you notice? So, Tuesday was the Great MacBites move of 2020. I can't actually remember when we last did that. When did we move last?
I can't remember.
A good few years ago.
Yeah.
A good few years ago. Right, in case you were wondering, right, Map UK. Right down the bottom there, that's a red map pin. There. That was our admin address. It was in Truro. Not too far from Graham, was it, Graham? Graham is MacBites representative, the southwest of the UK, and that was our admin address. And like when we moved there, it changed from PO Box, whatever the number was, Manchester, I think, and it changed to Truro. But it's underneath the printed in Hong Kong in 2-point font. And we said, we won't mention it in the mail, no one will notice. And we got about 9 mails. You've moved! You've moved! We got mails from people who live there welcoming us to the area. It was so bad. So this time we decided we would tell you. We have moved further north somewhat. But when I looked at that, Mike, it looked like it was in the middle of Wales, but I think my geography's a bit off. It's not actually in Wales. It's in Herefordshire. It is a place called Kington. Lovely little village in Herefordshire. So that's where we are for admin purposes. But obviously, you know where we really are, which is bang in the middle of the country, and that's MacBites headquarters. But, slowly we're coming further north. They might marry up again at some point. If you're wondering, that where we are is just south of Manchester. It's on the Greater Manchester-Cheshire border in Tier 3. But then everything north of Birmingham's in Tier 3, so that doesn't limit it, does it? But that's where we actually are. But as I said in the email, we obviously need an admin address because the house could not cope with MacBites series fan mail. That was the rationale. What were you about to say?
I've just reduced the shopping order by £23.
Oh, that's worth having.
With all of those...
If they could give us another 23 items instead of this stupid 95 item limit, we'd be doing well.
Yeah, I had to take stuff out of the basket.
You see, they're throwing money away.
Yeah.
Then they're moaning.
Yeah, it's going to go to Asda on Sunday.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And it's their own fault. They only got themselves to blame. Then it was Champions League night. Nervous Mike time again. Now, with the score firmly stuck at 0-0, there was only one thing for it. That was for Mike to deploy the toilet trick. Oh, it worked. Didn't it, Mike? I don't know. Hang on. 7 minutes. So you deployed that very early, didn't you? But he was getting very nervous towards the end. Very nervous. But it all ended amazingly well. So he was a happy bunny. Which took us on to Wednesday. Wednesday was production day.
Peter says drag your house over the border into Tier 2.
Oh, that'd work. Yeah, I could do that. Now, Wednesday was production day because on a Saturday, as you've seen, we are on air. So as you know, we've got not one but 2 radio stations. And Saturday is Music Day on Brooklands 196. So I needed to create 8 hours of pre-recorded shows, and then we go into our 5-hour live extravaganza. So it was editing day, getting the pre-records together. All 8 shows done and scheduled for broadcast tomorrow. In fact, there's only 6 on there, but there was 8, honestly. So all done, edited, sorted out. I'm looking forward to the Dolly Parton special myself, because I've heard it. Dolly Parton special actually happens at the same time that Marooned is on. That's why we do pre-records, because obviously we could be in 2 places at once, but only saying the same words. And many of the Brooklands people would not have a clue what we were talking about. So that's why we pre-record. But the bottom show is actually live. So that was Wednesday.
Johnny says if your mail gets delivered to Tier 2, does that mean you're in Tier 2.5?
We're lucky if the mail gets delivered, honestly. That ornament that came took 6 days and it was sent first class. Oh, it's not good. Now, you want to pay attention to this. This was Thursday. Thursday's a bit of a weird day because you've got to get ready for Friday night and you've got the rest of the stuff to do. So Thursday can be chaotic, but Thursday itself went off without a hitch. In fact, it was very, very late on Thursday. It was fast heading to midnight on Thursday. And Mike was all like that. Bless him, he was asleep. And then, just before midnight, the alarm clock went off. And all of a sudden, Mike was... man is the hunter, isn't that what they say?
Sprang into action.
Yes, Mike was all awake. He was ready for action. It was a shopping time. Shopping time. Not just shopping time, but a midnight raid on the Apple Store, no less. We had a look. You know, I mentioned stingy. The £120 voucher was only available on the 21-inch iMac. Various other bits of kit, but all the old stuff. So as Sarah says, not on anything that you would actually be contemplating buying. So We deployed ourselves somewhere else, so we did get a discount, but it was a different discount than that discount. Actually, it was cash off, so that was better.
Yeah.
We got a better deal, but we wanted to wait and see what the deals actually available were, and we weren't impressed. But it's on its way. Jonathan is going to be a happy bunny because he wanted an unboxing. We had his unboxing earlier in the year, the 13-inch MacBook Pro. We have two 27-inch iMacs on the way to MacBites headquarters. Not Herefordshire, not Truro, no, the real McCoy, because I'm not going down to Herefordshire to pick it up, even though they're in Tier 2. And Truro, they're just like completely free of COVID, aren't they?
We've got a ooh from Johnny.
He's a happy boy. He's a happy boy. What was interesting was the delivery dates, because I know when Sarah ordered hers, which was like a couple of days before, it was the 4th. So it's slipping frantically. But it did get worse than that in terms of shipping dates, that some weren't shipping till January. In fact, they weren't shipping till January until we configured it and it was built to order. Other than that, it wouldn't have been here till January. But once you BTO it, they actually have to get their finger out of their orifice and build the thing. In which case, once it's built, they might as well send it. Does it come with Biggles? I've no idea. It didn't mention it. Underneath it said ships with Mac OS, and I thought, well, obviously, because you're not going to put Windows on it. But it didn't specify which one. So
so they can hedge their bets.
I think it's going to be 50-50, isn't it? It's either going to be a clean Catalina install or Biggles will be there. I don't know.
Mine's going to be called Mike T27-2.
I promised Jonathan I'd call mine Biggles.
That's what he says in the chat.
So I think that'll be mine, Jonathan. Yes, we did decide to go for two. I know the M1 Macs are getting the most amazing reviews, but we both need a computer that will last for at least, in Mike's case, 3 years, in my case, at least 1 year, that manages to do things without falling over. And at the moment, that's not happening often. My machine died a sad death twice on Sunday. I think it once just before midnight and the other in the small hours of Monday morning. Oh, and then the internet went. Oh, I did tell you that, didn't I?
You did tell me that.
Yes, the internet went, and that upset it greatly, because when the internet goes, the computer's trying to get to the activation servers at Apple, and if that doesn't happen, then the whole thing. Oh, I'm thinking Kim's got the spot on answer.
Yes, I've just seen that.
Or,
Biggles and giggles.
That's good, Kim, if it works. But it's much more likely to be called Niggles, isn't it?
Biggles niggles.
Biggles and Niggles.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're on their way, and for some reason, I thought, wrongly, obviously, it was all to do with the fact Mike finished for his holiday on the 4th of December, which in my head was a Monday. And I thought the 11th of December is a Monday. The 11th of December is not a Monday, it's a Friday. There you go. Like run Windows. The M1 Max, there's talk it will, but what we need is absolute certainty that it will. Not just in terms of, it'll run Word and it'll do certain things. But Mike uses, I don't know what version of Excel it is. Do you want to elaborate?
The latest.
I know, but there's plugins and add-ins and business intelligence.
Yeah.
And it's very nuanced.
The S, not the S. The E3.
It's an E3 license.
The business license.
But it has business plugins for Excel that Mike needs. And while standard Excel might work on M1, it might... The one that Mike uses might not. So he is sorted. So that's why we did that. And my machine is so poorly, even if they do bring out an iMac with an M chip, he's already given himself 2 years. So the earliest it would be is probably March. I'm quite happy to buy another one when that comes out, when all the software works with it. So that's where we're at. It's on its way. On its way. Fabulous. Which took us on to Friday. Mike went back to bed after that. That was funny with the credit cards, wasn't it? The ordering process was a scream, but we are here today and we have a 2-show Friday. So was that a bit of a surprise? We didn't even mention that on Maroon, did we? Yes, there's Power Query, there's Power BI. What's that other thing you use?
Not on Mac.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil saying not on Mac.
Not
so
on
there's
Mac.
there's
Power BI, Power Query, Power Pivot.
there's so much missing. You know, you can just about open an Excel spreadsheet, but that's not really... I mean, Mike doesn't train Mac that often. And when you are actually using it, because you do a lot of, I don't know if it's Power BI, you do a lot of extraction stuff of requests, don't you?
Yeah.
And, you know, he has to have a version that actually works. So there you go. Oh, you know, the MacBook Airs back then, Graham, were made of sterling stuff. Graham's iMac is 9 years old. Yeah, well, I've got a 2011-inch iMac. 2011-inch iMac, good God. I've got a 2011 Mac as well, iMac, and it was a good machine. So that was when they made them, Graham. And I've got... My MacBook Air isn't quite as old as that. Mine is 8.5 years old. So I got that in... Yeah, 8.5 years old. No, 7.5. It's 8 years old anyway. 8 years old, mine. And I only got the MacBook Air 2 years ago because I thought the battery's going to go in this. And the battery is still doing fine. Touches wood. It's ridiculous, isn't it? They were fabulous back then. And yet the machine that's on my desk is falling over right and left. It actually is falling over more than my 2011. If only I could install the software on my 2011, we would be getting somewhere. But time's money. Let's get the iMac here, let's get it installed and let's get it working. And that way, hopefully, the machine will fall over less and there will be less jeopardy involved in doing a live show. Right, so let's get on to the first thing. Widgets. Now, this actually came out, and as per usual, it was there and Notion didn't say a thing about it. Not a thing about it. Until a week later, when they proudly proclaimed we've got widgets for iOS 14. Now, first off, it says 22nd of November, iPhone widgets. Yes, maybe, but they do work on the iPad. So why they've said iPhone widget, I have no idea. Let me see what I can do here with this. I'm going to try and demo it, which is going to be interesting, because you know how well it works with that. But basically, you've got 3 widgets to choose from, and they work in a certain way. I wish they worked fractionally different, but this is what they can look like. So the Notion part is on the left. Kim, we've got a post-it note request here. Kim says she'd like a tutorial about how to transfer all these stuff to the new computer. If it arrives on the 11th, we could do a live unboxing. That'd be like a 6-hour show. And configuring it, that would be the other 300 hours, wouldn't it? I can do that. You have various options. I can do that. Might get it on a post-it note.
It's on a post-it note.
Well, when I say a post-it note, one of our proper post-it notes on the show with everything to
It
organised.
will be shortly.
Right, what you are looking at there is 4 applications: Loom, Slack, Blinkist, and Calendar on the right, and the Notion widget on the left. Now, on the phone, the widgets can live outside of the dedicated page. On an iPad, they can't. That makes no sense to me. Probably makes no sense to you, but this is Apple. They won't roll that out until iOS 15, at which point they can say, oh, new feature, because that's Apple. But what you're looking at there, each widget takes up the space of 4 application icons. But what you can put on that widget is a page. So you can choose which page that button goes to. So I have done this, and I will show you the 2 that I've picked. But what you're actually looking at in terms of text, etc. The text is the name of the page. So Pamela's dashboard is the name of the page. The image at the top is the image at the top of the Notion page. And the push pin is the icon that represents the page in Notion. So it is literally pulling that through. I found I had to delete it and re-add it when I changed the image at the top, but that could just have been me. The rationale for doing that was I didn't have any image at the top, and it seemed nonsensical to have something that big just to tap through with no icons and prettification on it. We all need prettification, don't we? So let's actually try and have a look at it. Let's do the old air server thing and try and have a look at it, because, you know, when it all falls over, we'll all just have a laugh, won't we? Right, icons, icons, icons. Right, let's see if I can share this with you. Screen mirroring. Serenity. And it's contemplating it. Woohoo! Excellent. Right, there is MacBites Siri. Oh, I've got 2 emails. Why have I got 2 emails? Right, these 2 are widgets that go to a dedicated page. So all you need to do is tap on it and it opens up the application and it goes to that page. Oh, update and see what's new. Do you think they've actually added something new? Shall we do that? Or is it just the fact of, yes, it's this. Yeah, I've already done that. Yeah, so let's not do that, hey? Let's go away from that. So that actually takes me to that page, and you can see that the waves are the cover, the MacBites icon is the icon, and there's all of the content of the page. All the shows like that, and the rest of it. So that is the 2.0 dashboard that you have seen in the desktop version. That is what that looks like in there. Right, so you come out of that, and then you want to go into your notes. So you tap on your notes. Basically, what that is actually doing is just loading in a page. Because it's just loading in a page, I must admit, I'm wondering if it's worth the actual space that you're losing. Because you could go to a specific page in Notion in a browser and then just add that to the home screen. You wouldn't get the pretty icon like that, but in the space that those 2 are taking up, you would get more than that. You'd get 8. So that might be something that you would think about. What I will say about this is, to me, it's a game changer in terms of I could see myself having a dedicated page on the phone, so sort of swipeable page, just with like a few of these on, and maybe some of the widgets that make sense to have there. Now, if I tap and hold, we can go into edit mode, and I can do the tap at the top. Oh, look at Mike. Look at that with your stuff there. There you go. Right, these are all the widgets that I actually have here. There we go. So I'm looking for the Notion one, and sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. So you need to go down to the list at the bottom, which should be alphabetical, and from there you should be able to see Notion. So you tap Notion and you go into this view where you can actually add the icon. So the first icon it's offering you here is a page, which is what we've seen. I added 2 of those. But you can swipe and then you can choose different things to add. So this one would give you access to your favourites, and it would show you about 4 favourites. The next one is favourites, but that one will show you about 8. This one is your recents. So there's where I've been recently, and that is actually spot on. This just isn't some kind of interface. This is live. Those are the pages I've had open. And then that's a bigger thing of your recents. So those are the pages I have been to today. Okay, so the one I wanted was favourites like that, with lots of favourites in it. So tap add on that and it sticks it in there. You can tap that and you're done. But when you look at that, it's taking up an entire screen of your phone, and you'll notice there's only 2 favourites. That's because what it pulls through, that you don't mark a page as being a favourite you'd like to see on the phone. You mark a page as a favourite, full stop. So whatever is in your Notion setup marked as a favourite is what you will see there. And I don't tend to mark too many pages as favourites because it doesn't actually make that much sense to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in Notion in a browser and actually show you. We'll have a look at page. We'll do the after hours thing. Let's go into after hours. Right, so what we're going to look at here, when I get this on the screen, we'll try and put that next to that. It's going to be pretty tiny, isn't it? All right, let's move that out of the way. Oh, we can see it. We can see it. All right. What we've got over here is the favourites. And these are the 2 that we're seeing up on the phone. Now, the things I would probably want quick access to are what is in the private section, which is Parrot. So I have my dashboard and I have my notes. Those 2 I have outside of the Para system. Everything else is inside the Para system, and then there's the engine room. Why would I add those to the favourites? Because I can already see them. and the favourites are at the top, so I'd have them in the sidebar twice. That makes no sense whatsoever to me. So I'd love that to be more configurable, where instead of it being favourites and it just picks the favourites, which means to have it on the phone in that widget, I've got to add it to the favourites. So like if I went into the notes page in here and I favorited it, then it would appear at the top, and at some point, I don't know what I'd have to do with that in here. I come out of that. There you go. It appears at the top. So it does keep it in sync, but now I've got the notes on the sidebar twice. And the only reason that I've got them on the sidebar twice is, you know, they've got to live somewhere, and they live in the private section at the bottom at the top level. Why would I put them anywhere else? That's where they live. But to get them on the phone using these widgets, I would have to add them to the favourites as well, or use the big widgets, and you can... They are a bit big, aren't they? I reckon I would get 8 favourites in there. So I'd like to see that improved a little bit. A little bit of an improvement there would be good, but that is how it actually works. You can tap Add in here, and that takes you into an area called Private Pages. And that you can actually add a new page from there. Don't see me particularly using that. So let's get out of that again. The other options you've got are recent. So we could wiggle on there. Oh, you can edit the widget as well. So how that is looking at, well, how it's showing you the notes page is that you actually tap and you choose a page. So I've tapped on there and it brings up all of my pages that I can actually go choose another one, and then you tap away and that would then be updated. So that's how I've done that. What I'm trying to do is get into, no, not edit widget, not edit widget, edit home page. Do you know, you really have to do origami now, don't you, to make that work? Right, edit home screen is what I'm after. And I want to do a plus, and I'm interested to see what on earth will happen here if I try adding even more. So let's go back to Notion, and this time we'll choose the big one, but recents. So we'll tap that, add that. And it gives us another page. So it's actually added a page in between where we were and that to give us room for it. But that way you've got... I'm getting seasick with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 pages is nice, but seeing as though, if you look at that, you couldn't fit 2 of them on a page, why don't they just make one that's page-sized? And then I could have a whole screen dedicated to Notion. But that's what the widgets are like. That's how you actually use them. Will I stick with it? I was quite excited until I realised, you know, it isn't going to look great on the desktop. To make the favourites work, going to have things on there twice, and at that point I'm like, yeah, no, not as excited as I was before. I do think they look great. Basically you're turning your phone into like a PDA rather than a standard iPhone with standard iPhone sized icons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a play around, see how it would work. Would I be as keen on using it if I had the MacBites 2.0 and the notes coming from a standard icon, and see how that goes. Obviously it's a first iteration. Hopefully they'll improve it and realise that what I actually want is the thing at the top for favourites, but where I choose the pages. That would be perfect, because otherwise the desktop makes no sense. Right, I've got a question there. Do you use Notion on your phone? Me or you, Mike?
I've answered it.
Right.
It's there.
Do I? In terms of going into it, to add stuff, I might use the send to widget. So I might send it to Notion that way, and then Notion will then send it on to the Notion backend. In terms of opening it, if I needed to check something and I only had my phone, then yes, I would. Do I sit here and put stuff into the phone? Are you kidding me? No, it's far too small. So no, I don't do that. I've also had to be very careful when it comes to sending things to the inbox, because if you remember a few weeks ago, I did an expose on the fact that when you clip stuff, Notion does not tell you that it does not save the graphics. It points out to them. And if the page moves that you've clipped, then the graphics have gone. So because of that, I've actually taken to clipping back to Evernote. So we're back to Evernote for clipping again. So because of that, I don't actually use it as much. The device I use it least on is the phone. The next is the iPad. It's only really a wrapper thing on the iPad. It's not brilliant on the iPad. It's okay. Like Mike says, you could use it. So I have used it for demonstration purposes where an iPad is in front of me and I'm reading the notes that I've put in there. But would I pick up an iPad to actually put lots of content in? No. But then I'm a desktop girl. Always have been, probably always will be. I love an iPad for certain jobs, but working with Notion is not one of them. Maybe it'll be better in the future. I do agree with OneNote. Yes, OneNote makes way more sense on the iPad because of the pencil. And even on the phone, they've optimised it. I mean, it's taken them a long time, but they've optimised it in the right way for it to be a capture device. And I don't think at the moment this is right. What I think they've done with it is run with what Apple want. Apple want your phone to look like that. And that's okay, but it doesn't make sense then with a desktop. So I think it will change. I think it will develop. But that's what we've got at the moment. Now, if you try this, if you do want to try it, and you go into the jiggle mode, Jiggles.
Jiggles.
Jiggles is a good name for a computer. Jiggles. If you go into jiggle mode, what was I saying about going into jiggle mode? What was I saying?
I don't know.
Oh, I was going into jiggle mode, wasn't I? iPad, phone, jiggle mode. No, I can't remember.
I use the word jiggle mode all the time when I'm training.
People understand what you mean. If you use something highfalutin like, edit screen mode, they're like, what? But if you say jiggle, then they get you. They understand you. MacBites 134. Look at Jonathan. I left that there deliberately, Jonathan. It's on our favourites. Oh, bless. And Kim works faster on a desktop machine as well. I think for what it does, the phone's fantastic. But I'm still faster on a desktop. It's just the way I am. For some things, it is amazing. But I think the iOS-only fundamentalists forget. They take it as a challenge. Can I do it with a phone? Well, I could probably paint the fourth bridge with a toothpick, but I don't fancy actually doing it. Technically speaking, I could do it, but I don't want to challenge myself in that way. I would much rather spend my time making content or something else, like all of the stuff that we're doing after hours. I'm going to have time to do that if I'm piddling around trying to type on a phone. Two-handed typing on a phone. I'll be there forever. So not for me, no, it's not for me. But I think what Microsoft have done with OneNote is great. And with the phone, yes, if I want to scan a document in and I'm in the middle of a muddy field, and yes, I have done this with Mike dressed up as Agneta, the blonde one from Abra at the time. I had some paperwork with me and I'm like, I can't be working with this, it needs to be digital. So I've put the thing on the seat of the car and I've used Scanner Pro and I've scanned in whatever the paper was. I think it was a bill. I think probably the credit card bill. All 27 pages of it. And it worked great. And could I do that with my iMac? Well, probably, but I'd have to hold it up to the webcam and take the cover off the webcam because I never use the webcam. And then what app am I going to use? Because the phone's optimised for that and the desktop isn't. And I just think at the moment, if productivity is where you're at, use a desktop. But the iOS-only fundamentalists, get very upset. Very upset. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. Do whatever makes you comfortable. What I object to with iOS-only fundamentalists is them telling me I don't need a Mac. Hate to differ, but I do. I can't make Mac tutorial videos on an iPad. I can't record the screen properly and edit it. I know technically you can, but you know what? You're not going to produce a YouTube quality video of a Mac screen by holding an iOS device at it and recording it as if you're doing a selfie. It's not going to work. Also, the iOS-only fundamentalists have spent 10 years telling me that, and you don't need a keyboard because it's all on the glass, and now they're all going out buying keyboards. So I'll just leave that there.
Apart from Neil,
who sold his Magic Keyboard, way too heavy, and most of the time you use the iPad to handwrite with a pencil. That was my thoughts when it came out. I mean, it looked great, don't get me wrong. The fact that you've got this like iPad floating in midair looks great. But I've always said, since the origami case, which was 2-3 iPad revisions back, it was a case that had a keyboard in it, and it also had a stand if you could work out, how to bend it in the right direction. And I tried one in the Apple store, and I said to Mike, who in the right minds? It was too big, it was too heavy, it added that much weight, and it totally changed how you used that iPad. I prefer, on 99% of my iPads, to have a gel back. I do have 2 iPads that have like a wraparound cover, but to me, the case you put it in changes how you think about that device, and I want to think about it as it's intended, as a very, very good consumption device that you can put a little bit of content in. The one I pick up to use the pencil, like Neil saying he uses the pencil in OneNote, I use the pencil in GoodNotes, and I pick up the 11-inch, 2018 11-inch iPad for that. Right, but that was widgets, so you've widgeted. Who's interested in widgets? Who's going to do that? I'm going to see how I go with it.
There was something you said earlier.
Was there?
Yeah, which reminded me of something.
Oh.
You mentioned PDA.
Did I?
Yes.
24.
24, yes.
Chloe, send it to me, PDA. Right, okay, let's move on to the next bit. Oh, it's Christmas time. It is Christmas time. Why is that not moving? There we go.
Thank you, Kim.
It is Christmas time. Christmas in Scrivener. Now, reason that we're looking at this is it's Advent time. After hours. In fact, we were doing this before after hours. But we have a MacBites Advent calendar special that we've been running for 7 or 8 years. And basically it is a mail every day in December. So from the 1st of December to the 24th. In fact, we do tend to send one out on the 25th. 25 mails that have freebies in them, or special offers, or interesting blog posts, stuff like that. So there's always a freebie of some description, and there's usually some offers. I can't predict what the offers will be because I don't know. But the freebies I try and work out in hand. And it all starts in Scrivener. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth is it starting in Scrivener? They're mails. But that's where it's starting. So let's actually have a look at it. So I have the file open. I will need to full screen that. This is the real McCoy. This is not a demo file. This is the real thing. Yet again, it's put the word draft in, Mike. I am fighting that manfully, aren't I? This is supposed to be a separator, and I'm supposed to be able to click on it and put some spaces in, and the word draft disappears, and I swear it will come back. But that's just a separator, so don't worry about that. So this is the file. It was built to write emails about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a test bed for, can I actually do this? Will this actually work? When I did it, I realised the way that I'd done it was technically correct in Scrivener, which means each little chunk of the email was a separate document within Scrivener. But that did not have legs long term, because what was a problem with it was you didn't have a copy of the mail that you sent. You had all these little chunks, and the sign off and the intro you were using in multiple mails. So I ended up using it in a slightly different way than I intended. And this is what I've ended up with. Obviously, there is always scope for improvements, but this is what I've got. So at the very, very top, let's take it from the binder at the top. I've also been told by some people they don't know what Scrivener is. They don't know what the apps are. Could I explain? Scrivener is an app used for writing. It's a toolkit for writers is what I would call it. It's a replacement for trying to write your 3,000 page epic in Word. And toolkit because it gives you lots of extra function and features that you may use to create written content. It could be long form written content like a book, or it could be blog posts It could be anything. In this case, it's emails. It's just written content. So what we're looking at is the standard view that you have within Scrivener. But I will change that view shortly because this view can be improved for what we're doing. But what we're looking at is the binder on the left, which is where all the content lives. So think of it as an outline. As we'll go through it, you'll see underneath all these, there's things hidden away. In the middle, you have one of 3 views. Now, the inbox is actually empty, so it shouldn't make that much difference. But you either have the document view, which will show you everything that's in there. You have the card view, which will show you everything that's in there. Or the outline view, which will show you everything that's in there. For those to make any sense, we're going to need some content. So I'm just going to show you the Advent days from last year. In outline view, they look like that. In card view, they look like that. So they're green and it has the word sent across it with pretty pictures on. And in Scrivening's view, it looks like that, where you have all the mails, with the dashed line there being the separator. So this one above it is day 24 and we're going into day 23. So these are the 3 views. But that we'll come on to. It doesn't matter if you're up here. It doesn't matter which view you're on. You're just going to get something that says it's got documents. And then on this side, you have all of the meta on the right-hand side, all of the meta. But I'm using it in a very specific way, and that's what I'm going to show you. Because next, is it Tuesday or Wednesday, Mike? Tuesday. Next Tuesday is the first mail. So we've got work to do. So I put an inbox at the top. When I create a Scrivener file that is intended for a specific purpose, rather, which they all should be, to be honest. But if you've got an inbox and you need to quickly add something, shove it in the inbox. Because what will happen if you don't have an inbox? I mean, I can't remember the last time I actually used that, but it's there anyway. If I decide I want to send something in the mail, shove it in the inbox. Otherwise, I've got to drill down and find exactly the right place to put it. And for reasons that will become apparent, if I've got something like something that we know about, so an Apple event coming up in 8 days, unless I have a placeholder for the mail that's going out that day, where else am I supposed to put the graphic for it? I've got nowhere to put it. So I always put an inbox in and then clear the inbox out as and when I'm working through this. So if I go into it, I should really look at the inbox first to make sure there's nothing in there that needs keying up in a certain mail. Then I have an admin folder. So my admin folder actually has information in it if we're in this view. It had cards in it if we're in corkboard view, or an outline if we're in outline view. So the look in the middle does depend on multiple things, what you have selected on the left and which view you have selected from the menu at the top. Right, but what we've actually got in here, I'm going to do it via the sidebar. The first thing is the newsletter formatting style guide, which has lots of things of its own. So the first thing that's in here is an image. And that actually is genuinely an image and it's marked up. So I know this is a mail that was sent for today, but I've marked it up to say that's a heading 1. So this bit here is a heading 1 and that bit there is the heading 2. This bit here needs to be 600 pixels by 337 pixels with no style attached. That bit down there is the yellow highlight, and then I've got the green highlight, obviously self-evident, but they are styles. So that's why it's marked up. And then I've got 2 level 3 headings and paragraph text. So I have that in there because it's the quickest way when I'm looking at a mail and thinking that's not working, to make sure that it's styled up correctly. I also have that information just in chunks. The image size for a mail is 600 by 337, and I've got formats in there. So the heading 1 is not only just a heading 1, but that's what it actually looks like, and the show number goes in that bit there. This is purely for reference, because obviously I've automated it. I'm not going to go through and write these by hand one at a time. Oh no. Then I have styles that are mapped. And what this means and I haven't actually filled this in completely. But when you come to export this, to get it out as a mail rather than a Word document or a PDF, you have to say, in Scrivener, when I have a style called heading 1, when it's compiled, I want it to look like this, and you actually have to tell it precisely how to map that to HTML. So that is my styles map grid. Then I've got some raw code blocks where I can actually put in this code and it be interpreted as HTML. Then I have some signatures. There's my signatures. So I have in there the actual code, and it says it's not needed. It's not needed because it's coming from somewhere else, but it's in here for reference. And that's the actual signature. That's the VIP one, and that's the actual signature. So they're in there. I've got what size the images are on the card. So these are all instructional, completely instructional. These ones are interesting. These are code blocks which enable me to put extra images in the emails. I'll explain that as we go. But basically, as long as I know where the image is, I can put that in the mail. Why don't I just drag and drop it into the mail? I will come to that. But the short version is because I need to add a CSS class to it to align it to the right, and you can't do that. It's a limitation, which I'm nagging them about a lot. So I keep these blocks there as reference. That's an image aligned to the left, and that's a centered image. So those are references. I don't actually look at those that much. The next thing I've got is compile settings. Now you might be thinking, why are the compile settings in there? Because the compile should be in the compile when you compile something. Yes, but I keep a changes log of what changes were made. So what I've added has a plus and what I've taken away has a minus, and it's dated. And I keep a changes log for the compile in there. Then I keep a copy of the content, which is all in chunks in there. So I keep a copy of all of that. So there's the branding code, and it's code. That's why it looks like code. So I keep all of that in there, because if I show you where that actually is, you'll appreciate why I need it here, where I can actually see it. So let's pretend that we're going to compile that. So wherever I am in there, is that pre-content? Right, let's pretend I'm going to run a compile on it, which is there. Yes, come on. Right, and I'm going to send it as a MacBites mail. And I want to edit the format. So where is that code? Where does it live? It lives in there. And I don't know about you, but with all the pilcrows, which are the blue backward P's, and the size of it, I'm not editing that in there anytime soon. Look at it. That's all the stuff that needs to turn it. It's the code that needs to turn it into an email. Same with this. This is the bottom half of the mail. So if I need to change that, then I'm going to go into the content actually from the admin block, do the editing in there, and then copy and paste it into here, because I can actually read it in there, and in here it's a bit trickier. So that's why I do it that way, and that's what that is there for. So this is the content that's for before the mail, and this is for after, and it's CSS. Right, so there's the admin stuff. We got any questions so far, Mike?
No, we're talking about Imelda Marcos and how many pairs of shoes Neil's wife has, because she shakes her head at him because she thinks he'll never be satisfied with his kit. So I use your analogy.
Yes, exactly. That shuts women. The laugh of it is, we were talking on Marooned about whether you need separate ladies groups.
Yeah.
It's the women that nag me. The blokes just roll their eyes at their own women when they start, like the ball gowns. Do you remember the ball gowns?
I do.
We were going to have a ladies' night and they were all pushing me to go out shopping for ball gowns. Do I look like I want to go shopping for ball gowns? Unless we're going to the Apple store, we're not going to be looking at ball gowns. And I didn't dare actually say, did I? I'm only going to go to the Apple store, because right next door to it is the biggest Victoria's Secrets you have ever seen. And I'm not going in there either. Those ladies look very cold.
They do.
You know the little models they have all, I would say, dressed up, but they haven't got many clothes on. So we don't go there.
Kim says MacBites Advent is better than chocolate.
It's less fattening as well,
And
if you are bothered
Kim
in that
has
way.
actually just put a question in.
Yep.
Are you writing the code or does Scrivener do it?
I need to write that code. I will show you what a compiled mail looks like. But in essence, can I show a compiled mail? I can, because I've got a whole folder full of them. Open the emails folder. And in my emails folder, when I've exported mails, this is what we end up with. These are all the mails going back to July. 219 of them. So these are the actual output from there. So if we look at like marooned, 90, which was the reminder, so it'll be a very short mail. If I open that up in a HTML editor, come on, we're going for Whisk. You don't want me to. Okay, we'll do an open with then, and we'll still choose Whisk. Right. You will see the bit of the mail. So what Whisk gives you is just a way to view the text, which is on the left. And you can see I've got my version numbers in here. And what the email actually looks like in the centre panel. So all of this, from right at the top, all the way down through the CSS, which is determining, you know, that there's an Elaine Giles graphic on it and the top is grey and there is a button in the middle and the URL is white on a pink background. All of that is all of this text, and there's lines and lines and lines of it. It is standard CSS. This would work in a web browser. And I can't get this to scroll down any faster, but once you keep going, and there's a lot of code, trust me. A lot of code. There's columns for text. There's all sorts. Some of it you don't use. Some of it you need for phones where you say how wide it is. And then you can see just passing through are extras. Those are the things that I have added for this, for things like that code one there that determines it's got a pink background. Then there's buttons. We have green buttons. We have orange buttons and red buttons. So all of this code, lines and lines and lines of it, is CSS. And yes, I wrote all of that to make it work. We had that from an old system. Now, at this point, once you start coming into here, right, all of this, we're live now, and that up to line 468 is what I've written as CSS. From 468 down a bit to here, that's what Scrivener puts in. So what you see, because that's basically what it looks like in Scrivener, is converted into unordered lists and bullets. All of that comes from Scrivener. And then this bit on 486, all the way through to the end, I write that too. And then I take that code that I've written, and I could write it in something like Whisk, because that will give me error correction as I go. But once I've got that, I've got the before bit and the after bit, and that's what goes into Scrivener in the compile. So in here, when we compiled for... Which one did we compile? Pick one of these and do a compile. Right, it's going to send that to MacBites Mail, and when I go in here and we edit the format, the before code goes, so you're in text layout, it goes in the document prefix, and the after bit goes in the suffix. And Scrivener puts the business bit in the middle. So Scrivener takes all of this, which was last Christmas Eve, all of the images and stuff, all of the links, all of the headings, the formats, and it turns that into HTML. And it then shoves it between the header and the footer, which includes the header is the CSS and the footer wraps up the email. That's how it works. But that's last year, and we've not even got onto that yet. So we've done the admin. We're then coming into MacBites. So I have 2 brands here, and I do have some more that are hidden away under here. Okay, that was just to simplify it. But inside MacBites, we have 3 folders. We have the mails themselves, which are organised by week. So week 49 is next week. Week 48 is this week. And I keep a few weeks in hand. But underneath that, I then have an archive. And I've already got an archive for 2021 with some pre-writes in it. Jonathan's getting giddy now. 2021 pre-writes, good grief. You might need to sit down, Jonathan. Swift libation might be in order. But in 2020, I started doing the weeks at week 30. Prior to that, they were just all listed. And you got kind of mail blind looking at them. So I decided I would organise them by week. And then they are in the year. So let's go and look at one of the weeks first. So a week that's complete, something like that one, which is totally complete. And this is, no, actually, that's not complete. Let's go to that one. Did I? I don't think I did that one. So that one would... Now it's complete. Okay, that is what a complete week looks like. If I open it at this end, if I click on it, I see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But if I hold the Option key down and click, I can see the whole thing. So to look at any one of these mails, I would just click on them. And there are the actual mails. Oh yes, the M1 chips. Fabulous. And then there was an on-demand that went out, all about Affinity Publisher. So these are what the mails actually look like. And they are organised by day. So like Friday's a busy day because we sent 3 out that day. And you can see in here that the joiners thing that looks like a button when it's compiled actually doesn't look so great in here, but it works, so never mind. These are purpley pink, because they are bullet points. It's a style, an unordered list. If you actually applied a bullet style to that, when you compiled, you get 2 bullets. So it doesn't matter what it looks like in Scrivener. It's what it looks like when you've exported it that matters. So when I said to you about mapping styles, I am mapping the unordered list style, which just happens to be a very garish, but it was blue, you know, Mike, and you got confused thinking it was a link. So that's why it got changed to pink. You need something that you can, that is such a contrast that you instantly know what it is. So it just converts all of that on the output. But these are the mails. Now, I don't use that view. Now, obviously, I normally have a full screen to go at, and I don't particularly tonight because I'm at a very small res. But I usually split the screen. And in this side of it, I usually go to outline view, and I click on the week so I can see the entire list of mails. And what I want to see is it going from week 40, well, 49 in this case. I want to see it going from red to green. We like green. It means everything's dealt with. So I tend to have this dual pane view because, you know, the mail's quite narrow to start with. So what I see in here is absolutely fine. And I do normally have a bigger screen to look at it as well. I can't see the day numbers on here. So to be honest, what I could do is take this back a bit and give myself a little bit more room. Because what I'm looking, in fact, I could totally lose the binder. Once I'm focusing on this week's mails, I can use this to navigate. So if I choose a different mail in there, it will change the mail in here. So I could actually lose the binder, but I do tend to leave the binder alone. So what does a week of mails look like in the middle of being sorted? And I actually want to load that into that one over there. That's where we're at so far. So actually, I've left this so I can show you. All of these mails have gone out now. So what I would do with them is change the label to sent. And I also have a status of sent. Now you might think that's doubling up, and it is. But I want them to be green, and I want them to have the word sent across them. So I set both of them, and I use them for different things until they are actually at the point of being set. So once they're sent, they both have sent in them. But if we look at the labels, I've got dates changing and usable, etc. But if I go into the status, I've got to do work in progress, and then I've actually got detail. Awaiting the poster, awaiting the YouTube link, awaiting content, ready to compile and compiled. So I do have different things on the label and the status. It makes sense to me. Your mileage may vary. But what do I do on a weekly basis? On a weekly basis, I make a new folder, and it automatically has all of those mails in it. And you can see we've got X's, and we've got X's where the dates would be. And if we were to click these, we've got XX for the date, and I need to fill them in, and then actually put the content in it. So that's what that actually looks like. And it's developed over time. And I've used to do it where I would say new mail, and then I would put a mail in, new mail, put a mail in. But with doing Marooned every day, you'd go mad. So you really do need to work it out by week, which was when I decided that that's what I would do. So we're looking at one that I have done earlier, but let me show you how simple that is. Let's say I want to put week 50 in, ready for week 50. So what I would do up here, you have in this binder, some of these folders in the binder are compulsory. So this one, which is the drafts folder, that's what the icon is a special folder. You can't delete it. But I don't particularly want to use it either, because it's a magic folder to Scrivener. It does certain things. And I'm quite happy with the other folders, because I don't want one folder that's the magic folder and then another 3 folders that are supposed to be doing the same job, but they're not magic folders, because you can only have one magic folder. So I just don't use it. I also have a research folder, which again, that's created by default. You have your trash, and you may or may not have a templates folder. You need to create this. But it starts life as just a standard folder. And you then go into the project settings and you tell Scrivener where to get the folders from, special folders. You tell it which folder you want to use for templates, and you tell it which folder you want to use for bookmarks. And I'm not using bookmarks in this file, so I've not bothered. Okay, so that's what makes this icon here have a blue background and a white T on it. Okay. And in here we have templates. We have the weekly mails template and we have an advent template. But just to show you how the weekly mails one works for a start, I would want that up here somewhere. So week 50 would need to go above that one. So I go to new, and instead of just saying a new blank or a new empty folder, I can actually say weekly mails. In fact, I could drill down even more and just add one mail. So if I inadvertently delete one, I could add one back. But I want the whole thing for week 50. So I'm going to let go on there. So I've clicked that. It has a think about it, and it duplicates what's in the templates and sticks it in the mails. So I'll put on there week 50 and then move it up to week 50. Now you can see that the icons themselves actually have numbers on them, and that one doesn't, because I need to go in to the icon, change icon, and I have already added all the week icons. You can actually add these in for yourself. So that one is week 50, and now it's all sorted. When I click on that over here and open it up, you can see all of the mails are there just like they are with week 49. And then what I would need to do, so this is week 49 next week. Oh, you do realise, don't you, Mike? This one, Friday, marooned, and the reminder for this, there's the reminder. This one's iMac arrival day. Oh, excitement. There we go. So I change that to the date, and in there I put the show number, which is going to be 2 shows up. So once I've created that from the template, I whip through and I change the day numbers and the dates. And then I've got a whole thing set up for the rest of the week, which then starts to look like this. And as they're sent, they get changed, the colour gets changed, and they are done. Right, that's it for the MacBites mails. But just to finish off the tour of what's in this file, I also have a content library. And in there, guess what? Contents. I call them shards. They are chunks of text that I may repurpose. So I have in there, what have we got? What have we got in there? I may well at some point, let's load them into here and lose the dual view, or we'll go blind, won't we? I may want to remind people about the Dev and Think 3 series. So why would I rewrite it? I'll just save that as a shard and reuse it. Now, when I say a shard, it's not anything clever. I just copy and paste it. But shard to me means it's not a full email. It's a chunk of something. This one starts with the last Dev and Think session, and this one starts with the first Dev and Think session. So if I'm sending it out in a mail where I'm saying, you know, it's like the 8th time I've sent it out, and I'll put the new stuff at the top. But if I've not done it for a while, then I'll send it out with the older stuff at the top, so it goes all the way through. And then I've got catch up and upcoming, which is just a chunk I was using when we were doing that. What have I then got? Yeah, the quirks was just something, again, it's just a certain type of shard. Then I've got the actual MacBites posters, the after hours posters, and I drag and drop them from the poster folder into the mail. So if we look at that one, which is 106 on the 11th that we've literally just talked about, and we go into dual view and we go find it. So it's in mails, and it's in week 50, and it's in Friday, that one. Right, that gap there is ready for that mail. They're all speculating about the RAM now, aren't they? I'll tell you in a minute. Okay, so there's 106. But if I do that, if I click on it, then I lose my actual mail I'm trying to drag it into. But if you just drag, you can actually drag that into it. And you don't need to worry about getting that image from anywhere else. And I could actually do that with, that was 50, wasn't it? But next week on Friday, we've got that one. That's the right mail. So what I need to do is load it over here. So make sure that's active and load that one into it. I need the next one from here, which is at 105, and just drag and drop that, and 105's in it. So that's what I do. That's why they're there. Yeah, see, Sarah knows because I gave you the code, didn't I?
Sarah was listening.
Sarah was listening and paying attention. Right, how much RAM did we get? Well, let's take a slight break. If you apologies for the interruption in broadcast. We've ordered the minimum. If I could take the RAM out, I would, but we've had to go for 8 gig. You can't have less than 8 gig. So we've got 2 iMacs coming with 8 gig each. Spec'd up to glory on the other front, but 8 gig. And we will get it from Mr. Memory. There is a Black Friday code at the moment, which Sarah was with us yesterday on Marooned and was about to pay full price when we said, oh, there's a code for that. So see how coming to Marooned saves you money. It doesn't always cost you more. There you go. It doesn't always. Okay, so that's how I actually go about the actual mails themselves. Then I have another folder for other images. Now, pay attention with this one, because in this one, they're images, aren't they? As you click on them, they're images. So there's the posters. Then I have images here, and it says Affinity Designer and Photo. Images. Only they're not images. They're chunks of code. Right, they're chunks of code because I can't, when I put an image in Scrivener, like the poster, it's full width, and that's it. I cannot attach any more CSS to that. That's it. It's full width. And I don't want these images to be full width. Did you notice the little shiny images in the mail tonight?
I haven't seen the mail.
We should have done. You sent it.
I just checked it and then...
He doesn't take a blind bit of notice. He hasn't got a designer's bone in his body.
No, and I freely admit it.
But what I want was images lined up at the side. Okay, and the way to do that is with code. So although it says images, it's actually there for me to say, okay, copy, that's now copied and it's on the clipboard, and paste it into a mail, and then it will appear in the mail. And I have all of these here like this. But if I'm thinking as I look at that, which icon is it? Now that might sound silly. You'll say, well, it's the Affinity Designer icon. Yeah, we've had 4 so far. Which one is it? We've had 4 because we had the beta, then we had the original one, which was a triangle, then we had a square, and now we have a square with rounded corners. So which image is it? And what I'd have to do is actually grab this and then actually open the URL to find out what image that actually was. And that one's not working too well for a particular reason, but this one will be. So let's do that one instead. Open URL, and there is the image. But I don't want to waste time thinking, oh, it's the right one, it's the one with the rounded corners. So what I've done is each of these items over here has metadata. And if you drag and drop an image onto the card, that becomes the image for that item. So if I go to my images here and I change it to a corkboard view, boom, I see the images. Apart from these two, because I haven't added them. That's the only reason. I actually haven't manually added them. Now, they should be where I know they are. And guess what? They're not there. So I need to find the two images, because that was what I was going to do as a demo. Oh, if only I had my files where I need them, when I need them. Okay, I'm going to find it, but I'm going to have to do it over here with Hodaspot, on account of the fact I can never find anything for 2 minutes together, because I'm constantly reorganising files ready for demonstrations. Right, what have we got? I'm looking for PowerPoint. I'll add another one in and then hopefully I'll get PowerPoint. I know I created these things. Or maybe I didn't. Oh, in that case, I'll show you exactly how to do it. Right, I need one for PowerPoint and I need one for Scrivener. So I start off with an Alfred workflow, which is icon, which means it's going to extract an icon. And I want the Scrivener icon, which is new and shiny. So I'll do that. It'll put it on the desktop. I'll do it again. And this time I want the PowerPoint icon. And there it is. So on my desktop at that point, I've got these. It doesn't even have to be that it is rescaled. I could actually just use these. So when I click on a card, I see the image. When I click on a card without an image, I get nothing in the card. But if I just drag and drop, I'll put that in and it updates in here. I can drag and drop to that one. And we've got the PowerPoint icons. So it's so cool. But you're not limited if you actually wanted to see anything else, because you could flick that back. There is a view there that will flick you between stuff you've put on the card. So say like this one, I want to make a note that that was new in November 2020. Now I've got a note in there. It's the note that I particularly see, but if I flip that round, then I see the icon, and I see the icon in the info panel on the right and also in the corkboard view. So that's handy. For me, it visualises which icon we're talking about. If I change the icon, because it's not actually going to use that, it's up in the cloud. So I could see in here that, oh yeah, that's the right Scrivener icon. And then when I compile the email, it's not right. And that's because it's in the cloud. So what I do is when I change it in the cloud, I come in here and make sure that that matches up with what's in the cloud. Otherwise, I would go absolutely stark staring mad. And all I need to do with that, if I want to include it, is come in here, copy and paste that and put it in the email. So that's extra images. That's the content library. We've looked at mails, we've looked at the content library. Now, Advent days. And they go all the way back to 2014. I think we did do them 2012, you know. But I've no idea where they are, because they weren't in here. It was the chaos that ensued from that that meant that I sorted out this system, which was one of the best ideas I ever had. Right, I'm just moving things so I can see a tiny bit of the chat, but it's hiding on me. I'll move it over there and hopefully I can keep an eye on it. Kim says, you have one of the most organised minds I've known. I would not be able to do what I do if there wasn't some degree of organisation with all this. You'd go mad. I mean, just those images. If you had to go and find the image every time and then write the code every time, you wouldn't put the images in. It's as simple as that. So anything that makes it easier. So, the Advent days. Right. Last year was totally in here and it was all hunky-dory. Right, Advent days. So, these are by year. So I'm going to focus on 2019 because obviously that one is finished. So in here we have the actual mails. That is what Christmas Eve looked like. So it's using the heading styles to send it. So we have a heading 1, we have a heading 2, then we've got the graphic. The graphic is up in the cloud. But when I drag and drop the right graphic in here, it will pull through the right graphic to each mail when we send it. Then there's whatever was free in it. So that's the content of the mail. That gets typed in by hand. And this one, we started getting people saying, oh, I missed a day, or I only signed up, you know, on the 10th and I've missed the first 9. So we started putting in at the bottom a link to the previous mail. So what these actually look like, we take a look at what day 1 looks like. You are actually linked out to the mail itself. So that's our, oh dear me, that graphic needs updating. But this is actually where they're hosted. And once you can get there, you can actually look through any of them. So what was sent out in October? There we go. After Hours Live. What else have we got? 100 shows. Good grief. That was October. Right. You'll also notice by this, look at this. 21 in 2015. 5. But this year, 345. We've shocked them. We've shocked them this year. So that's why we put that at the bottom to link out to. And then we've got the sign off. Now, if you had to add these one at a time, you know, every day, again, that's that way madness lies. We did have in 2014, you'll notice we were going great. They didn't look the same. We had a lot of code in. We were writing it in Markdown. And we were going great. We had day 1 and we had day 2 and we had day 3. Everything was fine. And then you'll notice we got to day 8 and we don't have an 11. Yeah, all went wrong. Because that was the day my mum got taken into hospital. So we reappeared on day 19. And that's the mail that we sent out. I actually remember sending that out. I remember writing it, curled up in a chair next to my mum. I think one hand was holding her hand and the other hand was balancing Filofax with a pen, scribbling that out. And I scratched it out in pen and I sent it to Mike and I said, give that the once over and if that's okay, can you send it? And that's why 2014 was very, very different. But that's the one we sent. So 2014, there are some days missing, but that's why. But what we're looking at is how can we do this and do it easily and do it quickly. Good night, Sarah. Have sweet dreams of your new iMac.
Hi, Sarah.
Right, well, we're going for 2020 and it's not created yet. So this is now part of the real demo. Real demo now. Jonathan remembers getting that email. You'd have been a child, Jonathan. Oh, just what, 24 would you have been? A baby. We got so many positive mails back and I had no idea we had so many people on the MacBites list that were doctors. We had an anaesthetist, didn't we?
Yeah.
And 2 doctors. That one was a cancer specialist. I can't remember what the other one was, a GP, and they were all writing back like, oh my God. And I still have those mails in a special folder because I thought it was so lovely of people to write back. I wasn't really expecting it. It was just like, we've got to do this because people will think we've dropped off our twig. But to be honest, we were so, our schedule's somewhat flexible to start with. They were probably expecting it. But I said, we need to explain because we're not going to be back anytime soon. So that was why we sent it out. So what we need is this for this year, done quickly, easily, fast. How do we do that? Well, there's a template for it. We have in here Advent days. We click on that. Oh, exactly the same graphics, but these are all red because these aren't sent. So when I open it up, I've got the days, but the year is missing. So the 12th, 24, 12, 23, 12, 22. They are all numbered and they already have the metadata set to not started and to do, which means I've not started doing anything. But actually on some of these I have, because we've got some highlights, haven't we? And I do have these. So I know I'm going to have to put something in here and something in there. And I've got a subheading I've got to add, but it's a fantastic start. I don't need to worry about adding any of the graphics in or anything like that. I am wondering at this stage why I've got weird stuff over here in some of the notes. I don't know why that's there. And there was another one I've just seen. Where did that go? Oh, I'll fix that in a minute. But these are what we've got. These are the templates that live inside a folder that if we could just duplicate that folder, which we can do. So let's make the Advent ones, the first one of which will be going out next week. So go down here to Advent days and just click it. It'll have a think about it. There's all the graphics to think about and it's duplicating the whole lot and it puts it in there. And then I can just add onto the end of that 2020 and move it up 1. I'm quite happy to have it as a little star. I'll probably put a Christmas thing on there, but the little star was as near as I could get. And what we now have is what goes in here. Looks a little bit like Lola, doesn't it? What goes in here will be what you get on Tuesday. So my first step in there is to add 2020 at the beginning. And then all I would do is whip through there and put that in. So it doesn't actually take that long. As long as you remember it's the escape key and not the enter key. So I would go in and I would do that. And then I would start working on it. So this one here is going to be in progress. We will be progressing on that. At the moment, I've got to do it. I haven't actually added anything, but it is a work in progress because it's the first one that will get the content. And we know what's actually going in here. How about a fabulous read for Christmas? Because it's going to be a Christmas carol, which we're going to make after Mike. After Mike's done his stuff. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, etc., etc. So I will write that in. But that is the mail that you will get. That is where it comes from. So it starts life in Scrivener. It does not end life in Scrivener. For a very good reason. I can play along with this to my heart's content. Mike has no access to it. Scrivener is very, very much a personal thing. So once I've done the mail in here, shall we actually do a real mail, Mike? We could do that, couldn't we?
We could.
We could. Let's open this up, and Monday's the first day. Another week of lockdown. Right, what day will it be on Monday, Mike, for the number? I know the date. The date is the 30th, isn't it? 2020, 11:30 for the date. And the marooned day is... Answers on a postcard.
200 and...
Go
Monday.
on. You can do it, Mike.
60.
260. Oh, wow. So I get my day. And I then put that in here. Right. Now.
The last marooned.
Oh, it's the last one on the calendar. But don't panic. If you have watched MacBites After Hours, and we are 0104 today, aren't we? You will... Oh, this is good, isn't it? You will have seen this mail being written with 2 T's. And now it's in... Hang on, because I'm actually going to do this. It's actually in your hands. Right, smiley face. Smiley face. If you haven't seen Marooned... 104, you will have no idea what I'm talking about. Move along, nothing to see. Right, that's it. That mail will work. So this will turn into a magic button and it'll have a link into here and everything will be fine and dandy. So this is actually genuinely what I do. I copy that. We are in this one here and I do a compile. It's going as a MacBites mail. Is it day 60? It is. Go to compile. Paste in the title that I've just copied and it's going to go in my emails folder. And we're done. So that's compiled and it's ready. We will come back to that shortly. But that is where, when I am sending a mail, I leave Scrivener behind. And we go back. Now we're moving to Notion. It is now Christmas in Notion. Now, why? Well, I've just briefly explained. Scrivener is a single player. It only has single player mode. Okay? It's very much personal. It's intended for one person to use. Even if I want to open the same Scrivener file on 2 different devices, at the same time. I can't do it, even if they're my devices, much less share it with Mike. So single player mode, fabulous. Multiplayer mode, no chance. No chance whatsoever. Notion, however, works just as happily if there's one of you or many of you. So we move the production into Notion once the mail is created. I do all of the mails. At the point they need to be sent, that's when Mike takes over, and that's the bit that we will have a look at now. So, I'll go into Notion, although I've got this actually hooked up differently. So, yeah, go on. Up you go. Thinking about it. Right, this is where I'm going to build the comms table, but to see what would actually happen, I'm going to go into my system over here, and there's my notes. It's on a dashboard somewhere, isn't it? It's a MacBites 2.0 dashboard. And where are the comms, Mike? I never do it from here. Comms. Excellent. Rolling 2 weeks of comms. Right, this is what we actually do. So already waiting for us in this table is all the stuff that's gone today. Have you scheduled Saturday, Sunday? Yeah, they're scheduled, aren't they? So here's some of the mails that you will have got today. That is all the mails for a rolling 2 weeks that have been sent. These are scheduled to go Saturday and Sunday. And over here are the mails that are ready to go. Well, they're not ready to go yet. They're not started, but they're placeholders to make life easier for the two of us. Kim should like this bit. This is more organisation, isn't it? And because this is a rolling 2 weeks, what happens is tomorrow, the 5th will appear, and on Sunday, the 6th will appear. There's always a week in this queue of not started. So that mail next week, as soon as it's written, there's a placeholder for it. That one there. But this one is the one that we've just produced for Monday. So if I go into it, that's what it actually looks like. It has the date of the show. It's got the status of not started. It has a destination, which is a mailing list, the MacBites mailing list, and we know which show it's attached to. Once we have a link for it, we will put the link in there. And there is a calculated field telling us it's a Monday. Because when you're just looking at a date, you're like, I've no idea where that is. So we put a calculation in that takes the date and turns it into a day. We do have templates, but for this one's already got one applied. This one is actually marooned. So if I applied that template, it should just be exactly the same. But this is where the mail actually goes. So if I open up that mail folder, that's what it looks like. So there's the actual mail. It's got the image and it's got the actual mail. So there's the mail. I will drag and drop that into there. And at that point, I'm done. I would then say that that is ready to send. And then it will head off to Mike. It moves in the column. It moves across to ready to send. And at some point, Mike will work some magic on it, which you could do now, couldn't you? Oh, that was a dagger's luck. Because once Mike's done his bit, it would then be set as a draft in Aweber or scheduled in Aweber, one or the other. You don't have to do it now if you don't like, Mike. It could transfer across there. And that's why we need to go into Notion to do that. Because Notion is multiplayer and we can actually see it. But we're talking about the Advent mails, aren't we? And we do have an Advent mail there. There's an Advent mail. This is the main view that we use to organise the mail. Underneath it, we do have another one of these, which is exactly the same, apart from the fact it's the social posts. And I've got 2 social posts not started, but 2 have also been sent. So that's the rolling 2 weeks of social posts. They are separated into 2 different tables. Underlying this, there is a core comms table. So these tables are 2 different views of the same table. The reason that we have that is because Mike is not concerned with the social posts. I'm concerned with both of them. So I took the social posts out of this top table. because it was just getting in Mike's way. So we separated those out at the bottom. But what if we wanted to plan to make sure that we've got in Notion 24 to 25 mails for Christmas, our Advent thing, and be able to track them and know where we are up to? Because these are very much emails. We're on such a roll with these. They just go out every day, and then they go out on a Wednesday and a Thursday and a Friday for after hours. So you want to be able to say, I'm not interested in any of the maroons and anything else. I now need to focus on the Christmas mails. And that is really straightforward. In here, we have the Advent Mails 2020 gallery view. And there they all are, ready and waiting. They, at the moment, do not have any content. You know that because Scrivener has got no content. But at the point that I do have some content, they will be added into these. So if I open that up, it will be added into this underneath that image. It will just go in there, and that is the mail that Mike would actually send. If there was a MacBite show that day, then soon, can't rush these things. When you least expect it, then we'd put a link in there. So, just say that happened. You could do that, and it would hook that up to a MacBites, that was sent in relation to MacBites. And again, the link in there would come once it's sent, and I would just change the status once it's there. Now, obviously, looks pretty. It does make a difference if it looks pretty. If you had it in a list view, which I think we do have. Oh no, we have a Kanban view. There we go. But that's got all of the mails in. But that's not as pretty, is it? Who wants to scroll down that lot forever and ever? Amen. So I put a gallery in for that, and managing it in a gallery gets the job done. And anything that gets the job done, excellent. So that is what we built. But how much of a nightmare is it building something like that? So that's why I had the other account, which we can get to in here, can't we? There we go. The demo of how that was actually created. So what we're looking at, I had comms. So I made a page at root level. That was it. The next thing I would probably do with that is make it a full width. It doesn't matter with your databases what view you use to set it up, because a database is a database is a database, and they all use the same thing. So most of the time when I'm setting it up, I create a table to start with. Now, you are going to need some names for the fields. So one of the things we had was list, I think, wasn't it? Or destination. This is exactly the same as anything else. So whatever data you're putting into this, it doesn't really matter. But I'm going to make that, this is standard Notion stuff, a destination that's a multi-select. And then inside there, put something in relation to what that is. So if it was going to MacBites, I think we had list, didn't we? List : MacBites. Then that will create that. And then we would have another one, which is list VIP. So it might be going to those. And sometimes it might be going to both. So that's why I multi-select. But you literally just add everything that you need. Now, I don't think we had tags, but we did need to put in a date, which was a date. And if you're anywhere other than America, you're going to want to format that date. So it makes total sense. Instead of reading it backwards, I will go for day, month, year. Right. And what else did I have? That's enough to actually get us going, believe it or not. Anything else you want to add for niceties? So a status of it. We had a status, didn't we? And we had many different statuses. Now, with a status, it should only be a select. It shouldn't be able to be multiple things. So if we've got like not started, and we've got work in progress. I think I actually put in progress. Hang on, where are we at? In progress. And what else did we have? Sent. Ready to send, etc. So all of that, very, very, very straightforward. But things to think about. The name here we have as the name of the mail. So for us it would be something like Advent and then the date, which is going to be 12/01. But is that the best way to do it? And it really depends. You mentioned something, didn't you, Mike, about you copied and pasted in and you expected it to overwrite and it didn't?
Yeah, it has worked, that.
Yeah.
But it didn't work the other day.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll try it. What I'm going to do... Oh, come on, new page. No, stop doing that. Right, I've got this text thing in here, and I'm just going to put in what it is. So, Advent, and then 2020, 1201, and duplicate that. Thought you could duplicate it. Sure you can. There we go. 2 and 3. Just to see if it will work. Because Mike assures me it didn't. It has worked for me. I'm going to take those and get rid of that and select these. You've got even more problems with that, Mike. It's not actually. I do wish they'd stop fiddling with this. Right, now I've got them selected. And it doesn't paste in, but it used to.
It used to.
It used to. So what you'd need to do with that is a bulk import for 24 of them, or actually sit and type them in. So we still need to save some time, because you know what I'm like. Not happening unless I'm saving time. If I'm not saving time, I'm not doing it. So how I did it was in my Christmas in Scrivener thing, I have in here the headers. These were done in Affinity Designer because of the export, and they were all exported thus. So I have what we call the hero headers. They are the headers for the mail. So if I can't drag and drop the text to save me some time, what if I drag and dropped the images? The name might not be great, but when I open one of these, my image is there. Which is better. Let me just put, A, B, and C in here. Just so we've got a name. That is saving me time, because if I'd done the names first, I'd have to add those images one by one, and that would probably take longer than renaming these. Plus the fact, once you've got your images in there, you can then add your view and add a gallery view, which is exactly what I did in the other one. And by default, it pulls through the content of the item. It doesn't have to. It can pull through other things. So if we go back to our default view and we add another column and we call that cover, and we make it, we make it a files and media, then what we could do is actually drag these in one at a time. So that one there, which is number 1. This is not helpful. Do you know you can't edit a link now either, Mike? Wish they wouldn't do that. But I'm going to drag and drop that into that one. You should do. I probably banged on about it for about 3 hours.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
It's all coming back to you now.
Elaine rant.
Yeah. Right, so I've added covers for the first 2 in the cover column. But obviously that is a one at a time job. By default, the gallery view shows you the contents. But if you do want to do it the other way, you can go into properties, and on the card preview, you choose whether you want none, the page cover, which is the bit at the top. On the notes one, it was the yellow background, and on the MacBites one, it was the waves. So the page cover, the content, and what's below that line is any field that contains information that could be used for display. So the 2 that I've actually added have then got covers, but the others haven't. So it's just different ways of doing it. And what I decided for speed was, let's just make it the content and put everything else underneath it. Obviously, at this point, you've still got an issue. We do not have the right sort on that. You would need to add a sort and then decide how you were doing it. So if you wanted it from 1 to 24, or you wanted it the other way round, which would be Christmas Eve going backwards. So I would probably want it that way. And I would probably want to delete these as well. So let's get rid of this. Let's delete that one. I think all the others are going to be at the bottom. I could probably delete these en masse. the little tweaks to the interface drive you mad. There was one the other day, wasn't there? In the code field. Don't get me going on that one. You're not seeing the issue with the code field. Mind you, you've probably never seen a code field. If you put in code, you get a code field, and you can put in, like, you know, plain text in my case. But what if it wasn't plain text? There used to be a popover at the bottom here, and you could change the format. So I'm like an idiot looking round for it. They've stolen it, and Mike's like, top left, top left. Why? There was nothing wrong with it in the bottom right. But in there you can actually choose.
They've had feedback, obviously.
I'll give them feedback wrapped around a brick. Right, so then it's plain text. You get the idea. But basically they're moving my cheese without my approval. Don't move my cheese without my approval. Or if you're going to move my cheese without my approval, can you put it in the release notes? Because I'm the one person on the planet that reads them. Read the print of them, I do. Not a mention of it. But that is how you would build it. Obviously, we have already built it. So let's get that back on our thing. Not the notes. Where were we? Where were we? We weren't on the note. There we go. The comms. Pretty, pretty comms. And they are... Hang on, that's gone back to the other thing. Crying out loud. Let's go to MacBites 2.0 and find the comms. Comms. There we go. The right comms. And they will be winging their way to you from here. So I'd had a couple of mails about, you know, you mentioned you send mail via Scrivener. How? Cannot do that. That's how you do it. So it's in Scrivener. It comes out of Scrivener. In fact, let's get rid of this. And let's go back over there. Hang on. Wrong one. That's it. Right. It starts life in Scrivener. Obviously, Mike and I discuss, you know, I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking of that. And he will provide some content. So he will send me that. But basically, I do the work in Scrivener. It comes out of Scrivener into Notion. And that's because Notion is multiplayer. And we can then both start working on it. Then it gets queued up at our mail provider. So our list... What would you call them? They have a name?
Yeah, mail provider.
A mail provider, right, your mail provider. And then gets sent out to you if you subscribed. So if you want all of these for the next 25 days starting on Tuesday, make sure you are subscribed to the MacBites list. I'll put the link up later. But it is from memory, macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. Right, freebies. Oh, I have freebies, I do. Don't panic. I've not gone all Adobe on you. I might have switched to PowerPoint, but, you know, not happening with the Adobe thing anytime soon. But Adobe Max was on during one of Apple's events. So likelihood is you were watching Apple. But they have made the entire thing available on demand. 350 plus sessions, including the keynotes, which give you like a look ahead to what to expect in the next 12 months. Like last year, we knew that we were going to get Illustrator for iPad this year. They told us that in hand. So we've got all of those. There's the sneak peeks where they do show you absolutely what's coming. Not quite sure about Conan O'Brien. Don't know what he's doing. Don't think he was demonstrating Photoshop, but you never know. But all of the sessions are there and they're searchable. So they've got things like Photoshop. They've got InDesign. They've also got like general design stuff. So if you're just interested in how you would design a logo, how you would design a layout in Affinity Publisher, they'll do it in InDesign, but the principles are the principles. So I thought that was worth having a look at. The next one is a limited edition. This is only available till Monday, and it's Monday Australian time, which means Sunday. So it's only available until Sunday. It is one of this month's Envato Market freebies. But if you're anything like me, you download the freebie, like, oh, that looks great, yeah, I'll look at that at some point, and you don't look at it. Well, obviously at the moment, if it says PowerPoint, I'm interested, I'm looking at it. And I thought the thing with these templates is that they give you, unless you're making a presentation that's usually like a pitch to raise funds or this or that, you are very precise as to what it actually is. These templates are no use to you. And plus the fact, if somebody else has used the same template and they're in before you, you look like you've copied them. So I must admit, template-wise, I don't really take that much notice. Have a quick look at them and that's that. However, this one was different. It has so many slides in it. It's got 45 master slides, 159 individual slides. It includes device mock-ups that are editable within your app of choice. So don't forget you can open PowerPoint files in Keynote. It's got maps in it. It's got icon collections. There's over 500 icons. And they are like the smart shapes that you can draw, only there's so many more of them and you just need to copy and paste. And you've got those in there. There's charts included and there's some really nice social media stuff included. So even if you don't want to make a presentation based on that, you could cherry pick the slides you do use. So we all know that we need more graphics on slides. But as alternatives to bullet points, for example, if you were doing something by year, you could have a timeline there where one slides into the next. You've got another timeline there with the years across the top. Instead of bullet points, you could put 3 points vertically, or you could put 5 points horizontally, or even just a quote where you've got a really nice quote slide. This is pretty amazing. They've got calendars in it as well. The calendar's up there, that one. So I have had a look at it and it is pretty good. It is very, very nice. As I say, I don't think I wouldn't sort of say, new presentation and then use every slide in it. But that map tonight of the UK, that came from there. So it does work and it does look really nice. So it's so on sale for $15, but at the moment it's free until Sunday. If you want the Keynote version, the dedicated Keynote version, then I think that is $15. But they have a Black Friday sale on and everything's 50% off. If you did want to actually buy that version. But what I do is get the PowerPoint one for free and just convert it. So that was the second freebie. We are heading off to Mike for Power BI.
I have to wait a second.
Calculated columns in Power BI. Is your recorder acting up again, or is it something else?
I've got to press record.
Right, I pressed record. Just in case Neil felt the need to remind me. Right. Neil's never forgotten when I didn't. Neil's my backup. You're my wingman, Neil. Make sure that I've done everything that I should have done. Right, are you good to go? I'm ready. He's ready. Right, you're live, Mike.
Right, I've committed the cardinal sin.
Which one? He's got bullet points on his
points. Well, I'll knock this together in about 5 minutes.
And black text. Just your pro tip, Mike. Make the text grey.
Right.
There you go.
Okay.
And if you feel the need for a bullet, don't make it a bullet. Use a dash.
Yeah, but like
then you can claim it's not technically a bullet.
Right. Over the past few months, I've been doing a lot on Power Query, Power Pivot, Power BI, Power this, Power that. And I thought I'd revisit it based on a couple of people who've emailed in and just said, could I revisit certain things? So some of you will have seen some of this before, although I have added in 1 or 2 new bits. And I also wanted to start just with a quick kind of review and overview of the different power tools, because it is quite confusing as to what is out there. So the first one is Power Query. Power Query is a free add-in for Excel. So you download it from Microsoft's website, you install it, and it adds a Power Query tab onto the ribbon. You don't actually need it if you're using Excel 2016 or later, because everything that was in Power Query is now built directly into Excel under the Get and Transform Data menu. If you're using Excel for Mac, you're out of luck, because you don't have Power Query. That add-in was written for Excel for Windows, and you don't have the Get and Transform Data tools. So that's why I tend to illustrate a lot of things on the Windows version. But what Power Query does is it lets you import data from a whole range of sources, including web pages, CSV files, SharePoint lists, and much, much more. And once you've got that data in, you can then do what we call clean and transform the data. So if the data needs tidying up, if you've got extra columns that you don't actually need, if you've got extra rows you don't need, you can filter them. If you want to change the format of the text, make it capitals, for example. One thing that I did at work this week with Power Query was I went through a whole bunch of emails. They were actually calendar items rather than emails, and I pulled out the Teams URL from them. I needed to get a list of all the Teams URLs for all the training courses that I'd scheduled, so I exported my calendar to a CSV file and then opened it up in Excel, went through all of the CSV file and just pulled out the URL for each Teams meeting. You can also create, and this is what I'm going to cover today, additional columns using formulas. And the language that you use to do that is a language called M. It's built into the query editor. And when the source data changes, you've got a one-click update to update the imported data. So that is Power Query. Power Pivot is another free add-in for Excel. This one is still valid today, so Microsoft haven't replaced this with built-in tools. It lets you create pivot tables from multiple related tables or external data sources. It lets you create pivot tables from large data sets, because an Excel spreadsheet has just over 1 million rows, and if your data is more than that, you can't fit it in the spreadsheet. That you use there is DAX. And you can create measures which are summaries, and you do that using DAX. Unfortunately, Power Pivot isn't available for the Mac either. Power BI is not Excel. Some people think it is Excel. It's not. It's not Excel. It's a separate app. You can get a free version, but if you want to share the reports that you build, you have to pay for it. So it's used for creating visual reports from a whole range of data sources, and Microsoft are ever increasing those data sources. Once you've got the data into Power BI, you clean and transform that data, you make it usable, and it uses the same query editor as Excel. So rather than reinventing the wheel, Microsoft have taken the query editor that they built for Power Query, and it's now part of Power BI. You can also create extra columns, and you can do that using M or DAX, and that's what we're focusing on today. And you can create measures using DAX. So a lot of the functionality started life in Excel and has now been brought across to Power BI. But Power BI, as I say, is a separate app. It's used for creating visual reports. A lot of the stuff you can do in Excel, but some people prefer Power BI because it has more functionality. Okay, so that's a little summary of the power tools, and what I'm going to do now is go in and show you creating calculated columns. So let's come out of this, and I'm going to go into the file called Sales Report. You'll see that it's a Power BI file. Before I do though, why do you need to create calculated columns? Mainly because you need to include information in your reports that you don't have in the underlying data set. This information will usually be derived from other information that's already in your tables, and then you need the formulas to create the calculated columns. Now, I'll open up this report. There's two ways that you can create a calculated column. One way is to click the new column button on the ribbon in the data section, and the other way is to use the query editor. So I'll mention both. If I go to the data section in here, there's a new column button, and that lets you create, as the name suggests, a new column. if you go to Home and Transform Data, that will open up the query editor, and from the query editor you can create a new column. So there are two different ways of doing it, and we'll look at both ways. Neil has a problem with his MacBook Pro.
Oh, you broken it?
Just putting it down on the sofa, the screen now has a green line down the middle and there's a display issue on the bottom.
That's not good.
That is not good, is it? That is not good at all. Oh dear. Right.
Have you turned it off and on again? I've got to say it before somebody else does.
I guess it's worth doing, although
it doesn't sound good.
No.
But it could be a blip. It could be a blip.
It could. But it has had the logic board and the display replaced. Not good. So this data here, this is the raw sales data. This has been pulled in from an Excel spreadsheet or a database or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter where it came from. What I want to do is I want to create some extra columns. I want to start with creating a profit column. And to do that, from the data menu, I'll click, or from the data section, should I say, I'll click New Column. Then above the table of data, on the formula bar, this is where I define my formula to build my column. And this is where DAX comes in. So I'll type profit, which is the name of the column, equals, and then I'll put the formula. The formula is revenue minus cost. Now if I type the letter R, I will get a list popping up. On that list we have revenue preceded by the word sales, because sales is the name of the table. But you've also got a whole load of other items, and those other items are DAX functions, which are actually very, very similar to Excel functions. You'll see that a lot of the functions here are actually the same as Excel functions, but in this case it's revenue. So if I double click on it from the list, it will put it in revenue minus cost. Double click on that, and that's all I need to do for my formula. So click the tick and it will create a formula for me. I want to create another formula. This formula is going to give me the month of the order. So I will click on New Column and I'll create a formula which I'll call month of order. And that is going to equal, now here I'm going to use a function. I want to take the order date column and format it to just show the month. So I use the format function. Very similar actually to the text function in Excel, but they've chosen to call it format in DAX. But it's got two parameters. It's got the value, which is basically the column that you want it to look at, which is order date. I'll just type the first couple of characters and I should find it listed there. So order date, comma, and then the format has to go in double quotes. And in this case, I'm going to type 4Ms. It's not case sensitive, but 4Ms is the whole month name, 3Ms is the abbreviated name, 4Ds is the full day name, 3Ds is the abbreviated day name. I always say only create the columns that you need in your report. So in this report, I might want to show a pie chart or a bar chart that shows total profit per month, and I need to capture the month names as headings for the x-axis or headings for the pie slices. There's no point creating columns unless you actually need them. So in this report you might want the month of order. In another report you might want the day of order. Say I wanted to calculate somebody's age. Then again I'll create another new column and I'll put age equals, And this is going to be today's date, which, just like Excel, uses the today function, minus the date of birth. So we have a column, well, we don't have a column called date of birth. I will use the order date column. I don't know why I said date of birth. I was thinking of that I was working in the employees table, which is a different example. But what I'll do is I'll use order date. So the order date, sales today minus order date. Now, if I put that in brackets so that we get it to do that calculation first and then divide the result by 365.25, that will give us the age of the order. Now, what I then need to do is I then actually need to pull out, is that right? Yeah, that's right. Hang on a minute. Yeah, that's right. But what I actually need to do is I need to pull out the integer part of that. Now, why has that come out as 0 point something?
Is it misbehaving, Mike?
It is misbehaving. Today minus order date divided by 365.25. Well, that looks right to me. Let me just go and add the integer bit, which is what I wanted to do in the first place. See what that gives us. That shouldn't be giving us a 0. How strange. Let's just try that again. Today's date minus the order date. Unless it's order date dot date. Let's try that. And divide that by 365.25. It worked in rehearsals.
It always works in rehearsals.
Yeah. No, I don't know why that's not working. Okay, I will leave that one out. Let's get rid of that column. Just right click delete to get rid of the column. Okay, so those are a few examples of doing formulas in the sales report, and I've used DAX in each case. What I'm going to do now is do some more DAX formulas, but using a different file. So I'll close that file down. And I'll use HR Dashboard 1, which is another example. So what I want to do here is I want to create a column which I'm going to call exec level. This is an HR set of data rather than a set of sales data. I've actually got two sets of data loaded into this file. I've got the currency rates and I've got the employees table, and it's the employees table that has got all the HR data in it. And what I want to do is I want to create another column which I'm going to call exec level. And with this one, if the employee's grade, I don't have the grade in here, do I? I thought I had the grade in here. Is this, should I be looking at another file? Where's the grade gone? Just bear with me a second. Seem to have picked up the wrong data. No, I don't have the grade there either. So I'll change the demo slightly. Let's just go back to the original file. Let's wait for this file to load.
It seems the tech's gone very uppity in the last 5 minutes.
It has.
Neil's included.
Yeah. That's okay, Neil. I understand. We don't like our tech when it doesn't work, do we?
No.
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 We all get very uppity. You, me, we all get uppity. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slightly different demo. I'm going to create a column called rating. And basically, if the employee rating is less than 3, then it's going to say improvement needed. If the employee rating is equal to 3, they met their expectations. Otherwise, they exceeded their expectations. This reminds me of work, where I've just had to fill in my 4th quarter review.
Do you know, I do not understand the point of that. If you're not doing your job, you should be sacked.
Exactly.
If you are, they should just reward you
That's
greatly.
exactly what I said to my colleagues, because I had a good moan about it, and they say, well, I take the path of least resistance and just get on with it. Yeah. Anyway, click on new column.
How much faster would the COVID vaccine have been developed if you didn't have scientists filling in performance reviews?
This is true. They've probably been allowed to get away with it.
They've probably had a whole year without a performance review.
Exactly. Right, so I'm creating one called rating. And rating is going to equal this. If last... Is it called last? Last rating approval. There it is. Last rating. If last rating is less than 3, then the text that will appear in this column is improvement needed. If I could spell. There we go. Improvement needed. Comma. If last rating is equal to 3, then met expectations. Otherwise, exceeded expectations. Can't spell expectations. Well, I can't type and talk at the same time. That's my problem. There we go. Okay. So we need 2 closing brackets, because just like the if function in Excel, we've got 2 opening brackets. So what that should do now, there we go, that should go through and give us whether the person met or exceeded expectations. The last one I'm going to do here, the last example of the DAX, is using a lookup. So what this one is going to do is the salary column. I've got a salary column here. The salary column displays the salary of each employee in UK sterling. And I need another column, a new column, which is going to show the salary in US dollars, because we have to report on US dollar salary, total salary bill in US dollars, total salary bill in UK sterling. We'll assume that this column here is UK sterling. So what the formula is going to do is it's going to look up the value from the rate column here. So from the rate column here, it's going to look up the rate column where the currency is US dollar. So basically that there. So I need to go back, make sure I'm on the employees table here. Otherwise I'll end up putting the lookup in the wrong table. Create a new column. And the formula is going to be this. The formula, I'm going to create a new column called salary US dollar. And that is going to be equal to the employee salary multiplied by the lookup value. So unlike Excel where you have a VLOOKUP, in DAX you have a lookup value. Very, very similar, but it's just slightly different. I want to look up the rate from the currency rates table, and I want to look it up where currency is equal to US dollar. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking the employee's salary and I'm multiplying it by the exchange rate for US dollar. And there's something it doesn't like there. What have I missed out? Salary US dollar equals employee salary multiplied by lookup value, currency rates rate, currency rates, currency. That's what I missed out. I missed out a comma. There we go. There we go, that's better. Okay, so it's showing us the US dollar salary and the sterling salary. So those are a few examples of where you can create calculated fields using DAX. The other way that you can create calculated fields or calculated columns is with the query editor using M. And I'll show you one example of that before we finish. I think I've just opened the wrong file, but I don't think it matters. So what I want to do here I go to employees, is I've already actually got a column called monthly salary, and if I click on it, it shows me up here the formula that was used to create that. But that was created using DAX. I do actually need to be in the other table, the other file, so let me just switch back to that other file. Okay, let's go and look at the data. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a monthly salary column, but I'm going to do it using the M rather than DAX. And to do that, I need to go into the query editor and do it in here. So I will add a column, create a custom column. I'll call the column monthly salary, and the formula will be salary divided by 12. There's our monthly salary column. I'll come out of the query editor, apply the changes, which it does automatically, and then that new column will appear over here, and I can then use that in a report. So people often say, well, you've got two ways to create calculated columns. Which is the best way? And to be perfectly honest, it's personal preference. Some people prefer to do it in the query editor with M. Some people prefer to do it with the new column button with DAX. There is no real right or wrong way to do it. It is personal preference. Having said that, there are a few things that are easier with DAX. The lookup is one of them. So if you're going to be doing lookups, then use DAX. On the whole, most people tend to do it using the query editor, and the main reason for that is to do with the flow of data. The data comes in to the Power Query file and it goes through the query editor. It then ends up in the data model and then it gets passed through to the report. So if you can do all those calculated columns in the query editor with M, your data model will actually run faster, because the data, even if it's calculated, it will already be sitting in the data model at the time the data model needs it to pass through to the report. But to be honest, if you took a stopwatch and you timed it, you're not going to notice much difference. Maybe on a report with millions of records and hundreds of rows, but on a typical report, you're not going to notice much difference. Okay, so how are you doing?
Okay.
Do you want me to carry on?
If you want to show another demo, feel free.
I can show another demo. Yeah. Yeah, I'll show you an if function in the query editor. So I'll need to go back into the query editor. And what we've got here is we've got employee numbers. Now, all of the employee numbers start with TET. I thought I had a couple of employee numbers that started with ABC, but it looks like I haven't. But imagine that you've got two companies that are merged together, a bit like Astra and Zeneca. And when that happens, you're going to have all the employees from one company and all the employees from another company, and they're going to be dumped into one big database. But at the start of that process, you're going to have different employee numbers, and it can take a couple of years for systems from different companies to be merged together. So what I want to do is I want to create another column that shows which employees came from which company. If the first three characters of the employee number are TET, then they came from company A, otherwise they came from company B. So having gone into the query editor, I'm going to create a new column. I'm going to call it which company, and the formula will be if text dot start open brackets employee number comma 3. So the text dot start function is an M function, and it's very similar to the left function in Excel. So if the first three characters are equal to TET, then we want it to say company A. Else we want it to say company B. The if function in M is case sensitive. Just be aware of that. If, then, and else have to be in lowercase. So you can see they're all from company A. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken you through, and I appreciate that for some of you you've seen this before, but it was a recap, it was a refresh of doing calculated columns in Power Query. Sorry, in Power BI, using the query editor and using DAX. And what I'll do next week is show you measures, because that's from the feedback I've had, that is a little bit confusing for people. What are measures? Where do you use them? How do they differ from calculated columns? But that is it from me today. I will pass back to you.
Right, okay, we got no questions.
I don't see any questions.
I think Neil disappeared to triage his machine. For crying out loud.
No, right. Kim's just talking about annual reviews in the military.
You know, I must admit, Kim, I thought the military were different. I did. I thought the military were different. And that they weren't as, what's the word I'm looking for, Mike? Stupid. Stupid's the word I'm looking for, isn't it?
I don't know what word you're looking for.
Yeah, could well be. Right, okay, let's get back over here. Which means moving that. I can't see Wirecast, so they still see you at the minute. And we need to lose that. Excellent. Right, my iMac coming to you very shortly. Excellent, I think we're done. Right, coming back to me. Okay. we are moving on to possibly the funniest thing I've ever managed to do to myself. I have no idea how I managed to do this, because on some level I knew this. But I decided I was going to show you how to do an ePub from Affinity Publisher. This may or may not come as a surprise to you, but that was my plan. And the reason was we decided we were going to give away the Christmas Carol book. It's out of copyright, so you can make your own copy of it. And we thought that would be a lovely first thing for the Advent mails. And in my head, book meant ePub. So that's what I put down. So I'm then sitting there getting together, you know, the materials for the night. And I've got the text of the thing and I've got the images from the book. Everything's there. And I lay it all out in Affinity Publisher. And, you know, once you've done the job, that's when you remember. This is pretty fundamental, this, Mike. Mike's already smiling because he knows.
I know the punchline.
Yeah. Affinity Publisher does not publish to ePub. Yeah, possibly the biggest mistake I've ever made when it comes to working out what we're going to do in After Hours. And I sat and I looked and I thought, where's the ePub gone? Yeah. And I kicked it around for a bit and then I thought, no. That was 2 years ago when he didn't do ePub. It must do ePub now. Don't be ridiculous, woman. Doesn't do ePub. Fear not, I have a dirty hack. Well, obviously, what do they say? Necessity, mother of invention. Yes, had to find a way because that's what I'd said we were doing. But then I realised to myself, actually, what I would do with this, I will make an ePub of it, but it would probably be better as a PDF, and I will explain why. So the plan is for A Christmas Carol. That is the front cover of the first edition, 1853, I believe, of A Christmas Carol. So that's what we'll be aiming for. But we need to understand that not all ebook formats are equal. Tell me in the chat which ones you prefer and why, but not all ebook formats are equal. You have Kobe and you have Mobi and you have the Nook format. You have a million formats. PDF, ePub, fixed layout. You have a million of them. The best advice at the moment is it would be very difficult for a single person to have the skill set to write the book, publish the book, and then create all the derivatives that are needed. That's why agencies are out there to do that for you. But if you are intent on doing your own, people tend to focus on the main formats that are out there. Now, obviously, we are all aware of PDF. PDF is fantastic to give fidelity to the original document. Didn't we say a while back, Mike, we would do a deep dive on PDF? Because PDF looks like it's incredibly simple. You know, it's a file and it looks like what you scanned or what you printed to it from Word. But actually, there's a lot more to it. There are different versions of it and all kinds of stuff. So PDF, not as simple as you would think, but on a simple level, yes, you could print to it and you would get a complete fidelity with the original content, which is great, or it used to be. But once Apple released the iPhone, people wanted to read stuff on their iPhone. Then the iPad, they wanted to read stuff on their iPad. Obviously, there are a million PDF editors and creators on the iPad, so what's the problem with it? Well, the problem is that a PDF, it has complete fidelity with the original material, because it's like a facsimile copy of it. And while that might be eminently readable on your laptop, put it on your phone with no zoom feature and you're not reading it. So there's a compromise with PDF. Yes, you have full fidelity, no compromise there, but at the point of consumption you could be zooming in and out to try and read it, and the experience is less than ideal. So PDF has its good points, and it has its bad points. To some degree, you can mitigate the impact for smaller devices like an iPad or any other tablet by instead of making your material A4 size with an 8-point font, maybe make it A5 size and up the font size a bit. And that's a good trade-off between the desktop and consuming on a device. But we have other formats, and we're going to focus on ePub as being the most common. ePub 3 is the latest version of it. ePub solves the problems that PDFs cause. ePub is a reflowing format. So if you have somebody, we have a friend who is heading towards 90 and very, very short-sighted in terms of has a magnifying sheet as well as glasses. And on an iPad or a Kindle or anything else that you're reading an ePub on, you can just up the size of the font and everything will reflow. You could change the background. So in the night, during the day, I use the Kindle as intended. At night time, I will put it into like a low light mode. Same with the iPad. I might put it into sepia mode and then I'll put it into black mode. Thing is, that's me controlling what the content of that book looks like to suit me. I cannot read. I have to sometimes. But if I have the option to change it from a serif font to a non-serif font, I will go with a non-serif font every time. So with ePub, you are handing over control of what the finished article looks like at the point of consumption, which is good and it's bad. It's great for accessibility. And ePub 3 has the most amazing accessibility features for people to use. If you think in terms of reading it out loud, because it's reflowing, the story will flow correctly. But you think about PDF, you could have sidebars and pullouts. What order is that being read in? Because it could be very, very confusing if it reads 2 pages and then flips back to a sidebar and reads that. And the person with sight issues doesn't know what it's doing. So PDF's great, but ePub has some other features, which also are fantastic. So that's the difference between the two. But it gets a little bit confusing because ePub also has a variant known as fixed layout. And that is what the iBooks format was based on. So if you think about making an iBook, it's kind of like a PDF in terms of, well, that's what the page looks like, and that's what the page looks like all the time. It doesn't reflow or anything like that. And yet it's a version of ePub, and that's because you have standard ePub, which does flow, and you have fixed layout ePub, which does not. So that's something to be aware of. So let's go in and actually have a look at what that means for us. Now I've backed myself into a corner with it. So are you laughing at that, Kim? That's a big one, that, isn't it? That is a big one. Right. Now, Kim's got several PDFs on her Kindle. Yes, you can do that. The issue is it depends on... all the PDFs aren't equal either. Maybe we should do a formats night. Tonight we only need to know that they're not the same. But maybe we should do a deep dive on the fact that not all PDFs are the same. You could have a PDF and it could look amazing on the desktop. You could take it to your Kindle and you can read it, but you cannot do anything else with it because it's a certain type of PDF and it doesn't let you... there's no text to reflow. That's what I mean by that. But we're putting together... we're going into Affinity Publisher, aren't we? And we are putting together... whoa, that's big. Our Christmas Carol. Right, so first off, starting this completely from scratch. I've got one here that I've started before, but just to show you, it actually came as a text file. And I put that in here. And I liked the fact that the text was serif. It made sense with this one. And it's got page numbers on it. So we've actually done some work on this. But just to start that from scratch, we go get a new document. What you need to be thinking of in relation to this is, it's a book. So A4 might be great if you want to print it, but in terms of manipulating it on a device, it might be a bit on the big side. So if we have a look down here, we've got other ones as well. So then you may have, from a publisher or whatever, a specific size in here. So there's some very, very specific ones. I'm going to keep it simple for the particular reason I want this to work as an ePub and a PDF. That way madness lies. But, we're going to do it anyway. So I will make this A5. Now, given what I want to produce, you really have to think carefully about the settings that you're going to have on the right-hand side for layout. Number of pages 8. Well, I've no idea how many pages I'm going to have. But the size is fine, and we've got a vertical layout. That's good. I do want the images embedded because I don't want to be losing them. Because at the moment, this is a demo, so the files are in a certain place, but those will move once this is finished, and I don't want to lose the link between them. So I'm going to have them as embedded. I've no idea how many pages I'm going to need, but 8's a starting point, isn't it? And I do want a default master because I want the text to flow through the document. Now, then you need to think about, and this is one of the biggest things to think about, the facing pages issue. Because for a PDF, that might make a difference, particularly if you want to alternate margins or something like that. So if you think about an average book, it may have a wider, if it's going to print, a wider inner margin because it's got to allow for the binding. So this is the point that you're thinking about things like this. Do you want to have it have facing pages or not? If you do, and it is going to print as an ebook, not an ebook, a printed book, a dead tree book, then the margins on the inside left and the inside right may need to be wider to allow for the binding. If it's only going to be an ePub, actually pretty much what you put in here doesn't matter. If it's going to be a PDF, it does matter. So these are the things you need to think about right at the beginning. Where's it going to go? If only I'd thought about that before I said I'd do it as an ePub. Yeah, that. So I'm going to leave it at the moment with the 8, etc. But the facing pages is an issue, depending on how you intend to consume this. I don't actually think with this we would need facing pages. It might be nice for layout. It would depend. Now, the one that's there and open, I did facing pages. So just to do it differently, I'm going to say no facing pages on this one. Then I've got the actual margins. And again, for PDF, this is important. For ePub, it's not. The user takes care of that. That's up to the user. You need to learn to let go and let them do it. So I tend to have a bigger margin at the bottom myself. But in terms of an ebook, A5, I would say maybe 15 would be better there and 20 at the bottom. And we'll see how that goes. But all of this can be changed later as well. If you're going to think about a bleed, you need to be thinking, is this going for print or not? If it is, and it's going to be printed professionally, then you may need to think about the bleed. We are only creating this for a PDF and an ePub, so I'm not going to put any kind of bleed on it. And create it, which gives us individual pages, 8 of them, and we are then good to go. So I got the text itself online. It's available completely free of charge, and I've put in it some markers. So what I've done with that text, there is quite a lot of it. How many words have we got? 28,500 words. Right, so it starts off with the content of the first page. So that's actually the content there of the front cover. This bit up to the date is on the second page. And this is the first edition. Right, going through this, you've got a table of contents, which obviously is plain text, so it's not a full table of contents. You also have a table of illustrations. So the artist, this is a little bit out of format, but the artist is Jay Leach for all of them. So Peter says, when I do my magazine, I use facing pages and then select the pages instead of spread at export. Yes, you can do that as well. It would, I mean, we do that with our church newsletter, but we actually print it out in booklet format. So we use actually it'll work both ways. Normally, because I've just realised, well, last night's looked totally different, but then last night's upset me, didn't it? It was a bit dodgy last night. We have single pages at the moment that we are putting into a booklet. But normally we have spreads that we're putting into a booklet, but it doesn't matter, you can do it either way. All of that can be changed down the line. I think personally, if you know how you're going to produce it, then you might as well stick with what is correct, because it gives you more flexibility down the line. But we know with this, we're only interested in PDF and we're only interested in ePub. We only want the two formats. So in terms of spreads and all the rest of it, they look fantastic. You cannot actually export those with front covers and stuff, and they do look amazing. But people get confused and so many people are consuming on mobile devices that it's like, I have to zoom with this. So we won't do that. Right, so I've got that, and then we go into what is in effect chapter 1 that he calls stave 1, which is the content. But what I have done with this is go through it, and I think the first one was quite a way in, and I was quite surprised. The original version of this, the first edition, included 8 images, graphics from that J. Leach. And I could see when I came across these 2 lines that the image is Marley's Ghost, and underneath it said Marley's Ghost. I have put in that little tag to say image. So I know when I import all of this text where the images actually are. And I've gone through, there are 8 of them. So I've gone through and I've actually already done that. So there we go. So that's what we've got in here. But it's actually fairly simple to get that in. So I'm just going to copy it all and get it all in there. So let's put in here our text frame. There we go. And paste it in. Now, obviously, the first issue you've got is you've put that in there. Obviously, there's more text than we can see here, and that's why we've got these little symbols down here. It's so annoying that they don't actually get much bigger. You can zoom into them, but they don't get much bigger. But what you've got is 2 things there. The first is the eyeball, and the second is the triangle. So just to show you what the eyeball does, the eyeball's got a line through it at the moment. But if I click on that, it starts to show you the extra text that you've got. So we've got that. You toggle that on and off. Now, it's more useful that when you've got... Just realised this is very weird display, isn't it? Let's take that full screen. That's very weird. It's more useful when you've got just a little bit of text overhanging, which happened with the piece you're thinking about, Father Bernard's Missive from Birmingham. There was 2 lines, and I thought, where's his sign off? And I could see that I had this bright red, meaning there's something overhanging. And I turned it on, and then I had the 2 things at the bottom. Because there was only 2, and it was the church newsletter, and, you know, I've not got all day to lay it out, I literally just made the box bigger. And now we can see it. And you know, it's going out in PDF anyway. We can't print out. We're not allowed to print newsletters. COVID. So it didn't matter. Normally that would matter because it would be cut off in the print. But for this one, it didn't really matter. But that's what the eyeball's doing. It's showing you, you know, show me the text that's left out of this, the rest of it. You can there see there's even more text, but because the background is so dark, you can't even actually see that it's there. But it will show it you, not just on the bounding of the page, it will show it you, it will keep going down. But this bit that we've got there is going to chain it into another frame. So if I go down onto the next one and I put a frame on there, you can see I get another frame and I've got an in and an out now. So this one up here is saying this carries on elsewhere. When you go to this one, it says this is carried on from somewhere else. And it actually is hooked up with a blue line between it. Right, so that's how we get the text into the next frame. But I've just done some magic, and now I've got 132 pages. Whoa, how did that happen? Because obviously there's a lot of text here. A lot of text. And I don't want to have to manually create all those pages. So I'm going to undo that and show you how I did it, because I personally think this is the most nonsensical way of doing it I have ever seen. Let's just recap quickly what we've done. We made a new file. It had one master page in it. There it is. And on it, it had a master frame. We then have 8 pages that are our content pages. These do not have content on them at the moment. We've added a frame to page 1. We've added a frame to page 2. But we do not want to do that for all of the pages. But when we come to lay out the rest of the text, the trick, and I could find this nowhere in the interface. I did this when I very first did the beta, and this is the one thing I have had the most mails about. Like, thank God you've shown me that. When you click that, you get that chain link on it, and you click it and it loads the text. If you see now, your cursor's changed, and you can go on another page and you can draw out where you would like that. And it adds another one in. But that way madness lies. If you did exactly the same, but held the Shift key down, so hold the Shift key down and click once, it then creates all of the other pages. How are we supposed to know that's there? I'm never sure with that. So we've got our text in there. Now, in terms of layout, it's not actually amazing, because what we have got here is a huge gap. We have a huge gap because the original text came from plain text, and there was 2 carriage returns at the end of every paragraph. We have a couple of ways that we could deal with that. We could take that out in here. So in here we have, now it always gets me this, I think it should be in edit. But if I command an F, we have find and replace. So what do I want to find and what do I want to replace it with? That Shift key trick, it's amazing, Kim, and yet they don't make anything like enough of it. Why they don't just have another symbol or something is beyond me. The number of times, I don't actually lay out that many pages that often, because to me, if I've got 130 pages, I'd be doing it in somewhere else. Unless the layout was absolutely critical, that number of pages may well be handled somewhere else better than it is handled in here. It just depends on the layout. But the ability to do it is amazing and should be made more of. So one option I've got is if I could search in here, so we've got special characters, and we've got a paragraph break, and then go back into it and then do another paragraph break. So find 2 paragraph breaks and replace it with, 1 paragraph break, like that. So we'll do a find, and it's gone to the top, and it's found 1 there. And it actually shows you underneath all of them. And obviously there's thousands of them because it's every paragraph. But technically speaking, it should be able to be done. So we'll just do a replace all, and hopefully that'll sort it out. Is it actually doing that? Right, it's gone through it and it's done it all. But there are some occasions where there must have been more than 2. Now, when would that be? So if we do that, just click on it, it will show you where that is, and that's where the image is. So you then need to make a decision whether you want those replacing or not. And you can do that by clicking on each one of them and going through. I actually think, because I had the foresight to put the image tags in first, I'm not going to lose anything by rerunning that. So this is incredibly powerful. If you've tried any other desktop publishing app, the find and replace like this is a nightmare. It did it, and then it's gone back and said, right, I've done that, a single pass, but this still needs looking at. And you can navigate between them from that find dialog, which again, amazingly powerful. So I'm going to do another replace all, and doing it twice meant it's sorted. Now you may think, oh, but what if you wanted a bigger gap? Well, don't forget that's going to come from styles, isn't it? We can create a style like we looked at in typography, and we can determine the gap between them. We could also put in a baseline grid and all of that. I will explain why that is a total waste of time shortly, but we could do if we wanted to. So that's the find and replace part of that taken care of. So let's go back to our pages, and now, whereas before we had 130 something, we still have those pages, but there's no text. And there's no text because, look how many pages, basically, of blank stuff we actually had in there. So let's go down to that one, keep going. We've taken out the carriage returns and it shrunk it down by quite a considerable amount. We know it's the end because it says God bless us, everyone, which was not in the original manuscript. That was added at the publishers. But pages 95 all the way through to 132 we no longer need. So I'm going to delete those. So they've gone. We may need those pages again if we decided to increase the size of the font or increase the line spacing, because that's not very readable. If we decided to do that, then what will happen at this point, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Command and A. Can we do that from the top? Do it from there. I want to get the whole of this, not just in this frame. Well, let's see if we can actually do that. Hopefully that's got it all. And increase it from 12 to 13. And that has updated every single one of these to 13. If you want to be absolutely certain that it's done them to them all, then obviously make it something silly and wait for it to update. Yes, it's done it to it all. So we definitely don't need that, but we'll make it say 18. The issue you've now got is, and something that you need to be aware of, when you go all the way down to the bottom and you've got page 94, we've got that problem again that we've got too much text because you just deleted the pages. Now, they were blank when it was 12 points, but they're not blank when it's that size. But to fix it, you just use the Shift key again. So click that and it will add in the extra pages you need. Now we're up to 182. So you are playing backwards and forwards with this. It's good practice to always check that at the end to make sure that you do actually have in there all the text. There is, so let's just take away that page. So we now have fast with the bottom. That's the last page. Let's take that away. When we go back to this page, we can see that we've got the eyeball telling us there's more unplaced text. But at the moment, looking at that, I can't actually see that there's any unplaced text if I click away, because now I can't see the eyeball, and maybe that was the end of it. So that's something that you need to think about. But if I go in to here, so what I'm trying to do is export. So if I go into File and I go to Export, I get a pre-flight warning. A pre-flight is a pre-flight check, and it means literally pre-flight. Before this gets sent out, there's some things you need to look at. There's something not right. If you're confident you're right, then by all means ignore and continue. But it's always a good idea to have a look. Now, this is actually most annoying. Can I get that? I can't actually see this. I can't see the top and bottom of it because the screen is so small and I can't move it somewhere else unless I can see the top, and I can't see the top. Don't you love interfaces? Can I dock that somewhere? No, it is not letting me move that, but we can see what we need. It's just the fact we can't see the top of it. So what it does is it's doing a spell check at the top of that window. Can you make a note, Mike, for me to get some screenshots of that next time so we can actually see it?
Screenshots of what?
The pre-flight dialogue. Okay, so at the top it would give you a number telling you how many of these problems there were. And as you can see, there's a lot of what it thinks are spelling mistakes. But some of these are not spelling mistakes. There's names, like the Cratchits. There's also words. Dilber is Mrs. Dilber. She's the housekeeper. Uncurtained, but that was a word that he would have used. There's also like colloquialisms at points. There's also wonderful down there with 2 dashes in it. But they are probably right because that is from the original text. So I think I could ignore most of the spelling mistakes in there. The interesting one is the one at the bottom that's saying overflowing text frame. That is doing a check for you even when you don't see it. So you can't look at that and think, oh yes, there's clearly some text overhanging, unless you start clicking in and you get the eyeball and have a look at it. But if you actually click on that, it will take you to it and activate it, and you can do the eyeball thing, or you can do the shift and click thing, and that solves the problem. And when it's corrected, it disappears from the pre-flight list. So that pre-flight will come up at any point because it's actually before you decide how you are exporting it. So we've not said we want this, we want a PDF, or we want, it's doing the check before you even get that far to make sure that you are aware you are about to output content, and it considers there's 1, spelling mistakes, and 2, you've got some hidden text. The hidden text is the killer. That will get you every time. Now, I'm going to need to go through the interface to get rid of that dialog box. So it's down here in the studio and it's pre-flight, because it's just the size the screen is. And if I fiddle with the screen, we'll all know about it. So I'm going to leave it alone. But that's the basics in terms of importing it, etc. Now, obviously this needs to have a lot of formatting done to it to make it a beautiful PDF. But I said an ePub. So anything that I do with this moving forward, I need to be aware of the fact it's going to be a total and utter waste of time in an ePub. Now, maybe that is Affinity's logic with why they don't support ePub. But if you go and you do your export and you've got graphics, so PNGs, JPEGs, GIFs, TIFFs and PSDs, also you've got your SVGs, EPSs, EXRs, HDR and TGA. They are all graphics formats. Sometimes you might want to produce it as a graphic for a website. So you might have like the front cover of a magazine and you want to say the latest issue is out, click below to subscribe, and there's a picture of the front cover, in which case that will do you great. The only version, the only export format here that's actually going to give you something that people might actually consume is the PDF. There is no ePub format, despite me being absolutely confident that there was. Don't know where that came from. But you can take your content from Affinity Publisher and turn it into an ePub. You just have to think laterally to do it. And I was forced to think laterally to do it. Right, with a PDF, you want complete fidelity. So what would you guys do with it? For complete fidelity, at the point you've got your PDF, you would pick a font. Let me know what else you would do, but I think you'd pick a font. You'd have a colour. You'd pick a size for the page. You may have a background for the page, which in this case I actually would. I made the text brown and I put a custom font on it, so I've done all of that. We know there are 8 graphics in here, and there is the front cover issue as well. There's also a plate for the inside of it. So there's all of that to lay out. And you are going to want those images at a certain point in the text. But I've stopped at this point because if I do all of that, it is a total and utter waste of time. Because I need the ePub, and the ePub is automatically flowing. That's the point of it. So I can make it a certain font and I can make it a certain size. That is going to do nobody any good on a Kindle or on a tablet when they're trying to reflow it. So you have to approach these 2 different types of outputs in completely different ways. To the point, I would question whether in here is the right place to make an ePub. You can do it, and maybe if you're comfortable and confident with using it and you intend to create a PDF like I do here, maybe that is something that you would do. You would say, no, I'm going to do it from in here. Right, just turning off my notifications that turn back on at midnight, just because they can. So before I take it any further in terms of fixed layout in the design, now might be a good time, once I've got the text sorted, to actually produce the version I'm going to use for an ePub. So that's why I've stopped at this point. Baseline grids and ePubs, forget it. They don't care. Because you're trying to force the content to look a certain way. An ePub is saying, no, that's up to the user. But in terms of creating an ePub from it, PDF is actually where you would start. Right, the thing to think about in here is, when it says PDF for print, it doesn't actually matter that much. The differences that you've got here are for print or flattening or exporting, and they're really talking about the image quality, and there's no images in here yet. So it doesn't really matter. So I will leave that set to PDF. this is the raster DPI is to do with the images, and it says nothing's going to be rasterized because there's no images in there yet. Did we mention no images? What you will need to think about in here is the area, and at the moment it's set to all pages. And it could do all pages on this layout, but if we went back and we had a look at the one that I've done more work on, this one, and we do an export on that, and we've got pre-flight warnings on here as well, which we'll ignore. Okay, if we go into there with that one, it defaults to all spreads. So it depends in there, what you see in there depends on what you've created at the point you created it, and we did say facing pages with this one. Okay. Right, if we were going to produce this one for ePub, obviously the text is rather large at the moment, so we'd sort something out with that. But there's one thing that isn't yet in this file that is in the other file. So I'm going to go back to the other file and let you have a look. This one, because it started life as I'm going to make a PDF, has page numbers. Guess what? You don't get to tell an ePub what the page number is either. Not in terms of it's displayed on the page. So they may as well not be exported. Naughty things will happen if the page numbers are there. So what might be a good idea is to have, if you are doing what I need to do with this, which is to produce an ePub from it and a PDF, is to make sure that there are no page numbers at the point I'm exporting for the ePub. So all this one's got that the other one doesn't have, and that's got all the pages, 89 pages. So that one could be produced to a PDF. We've got the front cover that we would put a front cover on, but the preface has a blank page because it's laid out for a book. The next one, it's got the contents, blank page. Next one, books always start on the right hand side. So again, a blank page. So these are things to think about with it. And if you're going to produce for PDF, you may have taken it further than we have taken this one in terms of formatting. So if we took this one out to ePub, not much of a challenge. Not enough of a challenge for us, because we like a big challenge, don't we, folks? So what if I've done this one and I've got page numbers and all kinds of stuff in it, blank pages, you name it, and now I realise I need an ePub. We don't want to have to start again. So this is what we would do. Right, first of all, we're going to need to look at the master pages and see what exactly we've got and what we can repurpose. So the master A has page numbers on. The master B, no page numbers. Okay. And everything in here has a page number. So the first thing to do is to select all of the pages in here. Please tell me we can do all of the pages. My Mac is being very slow. I think it's picked up on what Neil was doing. Right. If you
Neil's back.
Is Neil back?
Neil's
How's it
back.
doing?
I don't know. I've asked him.
Right, so I'm going to select all that lot. So all of those are selected. And then what I'm going to do is to apply a master. Now, don't forget what you've got in here. You can apply multiple masters. This way madness lies, don't do that. You just need master B. So at this bottom tick where it says replace, that's exactly what you want to do. And we want to choose master B because it's got no page numbers on it. So do that and the page numbers disappear. So now we're more ready to create an ePub. A little bit more ready. And this is how we do it. By creating a PDF. So it's going to give me the pre-flight warning, but the pre-flight warning is to do with the spellings. Just to prove the point, I will open it. There's nothing else wrong in there apart from the spellings. So let's go turn that off again. Right, so this time we will do our ignore and go into here and choose for print. So we're ready to go. Now, first of all, because we've taken this further than we took the last one, it's offering spreads, and that it's not the best way to do an ePub, let's say that. So let's make sure that what we've got is the best PDF possible to make to use as magic beans to create an ePub, because many people have still said, have said to me, in fact said in general, you should never be relying on taking a PDF and making an ePub of it. but it can be done, and it can be done fairly effectively, as long as you don't do silly things like leave page numbers in and stuff. So that's what we're going to do here. In terms of spreads, no, it's going to be pages. Individual pages, which was exactly what Peter said before. You can have it as spreads in Affinity Publisher, but you can decide at the point of export, I want all the pages, and that's what I'm going to do.
We think Johnny is gone.
Whisper if we're talking about Johnny as being asleep. He'll be there in the morning, leave him be. Right, so I'm putting that on the desktop. There we go. So I'm going to end up with a PDF of that with all the formatting in it. So let's have a look at it. It's contemplating it. And there we go. We also have blank pages in it. Now this is the point. It would be very silly to try and do ePubs with blank pages in. Why would we do that? We might move things down the page a bit, and sometimes you'll actually see in books it will say page intentionally left blank, just in case you think there's actually missing content. And we've got the layout here. Everything starts on the right side, and we've got margins on it. We know no page numbers, we turn those off. Right, there we go. Now, if I switch into this view, which is like thumbnail view, I personally think it would be ludicrous to try and hand this off with these blank pages in it. So you're going to need a little bit of manual triage at this point. Might as well get rid of these, because what we want is a flowing text, not flowing text with acres of space between it. So we need to just delete those. So I think there's about 6 of them. Right, delete all of those. Right. So now we've got fewer pages. We've got 83 pages now. But make sure you know when you're doing this what's on your last page. Because if you know what's on your last page, you know you're missing nothing. Now, this as a PDF, I said not all PDFs are equal. They're not. This PDF, this text is selectable. So it's not an image that's been scanned and not OCR'd. This text is readable, it's selectable, it's editable if you like, if you've got a PDF editor. So if I wanted to put a capital M on Merry Christmas there, I could do that by hitting the edit button, and I'm editing the text, and I want to go into there, and I want to change that to a capital M. So you can even edit it at this stage. Right, we've saved it. Each of these, as you hover, is an individual chunk of text. But when you look down it, it is an individual chunk of text in a sequence. That is the sequence of text from start to finish. It just happens to be a PDF, which is not what we want. So that's where I was thinking, what corner have I backed myself into? Right, this is how you deal with it. There is a free application, the link's in the thing, Mike, which is going to Calibre. So obviously I've already done this once, so let's delete that. Remove, say bye-bye. Remove selected books. Yes, disappear. Okay, so I've got a few books in here. This is Calibre. It is the world's worst interface on a Mac, don't you think, Mike? The big chunky buttons remind me of WinZip. Do you remember when they brought out the new one with the nice icons and one was a heart? It looks like that.
Spotty icon.
Good night, Paul. Neil's not enjoying his laptop. No, that laptop's... I've heard of lots of problems with those. Those 16 inches, not good. Right, so we're in Calibre. What Calibre does quite a few things. And I must admit, I don't use it that much. You can see I've got a few books in there. Mainly books that I want to convert from one format to another. But this is completely free. And it is actually amazing. I just wish it had a bit less of a clunky interface. It's a little bit Fisher-Price, isn't it? It'll look fabulous on Biggles. Right, one thing it can do is it can be a library, and it can be your library where you have your books. So this take control of the Devon Think thing. If I double click that, have I not opened that? Was I just playing around with it? There we go. And you can literally read it on here. There's images in it, the full works. But do notice, right, this was converted. Oh, look, page numbers. Not fabulous. Not fabulous. It really could do with being a proper ePub made in the right way. That's why I took the page numbers away. But what we have is this PDF on the desktop. And because we've triaged the PDF in a good way, we're going to be able to use the same file to make the PDF as we did the ePub. So let's drag and drop the PDF into there. And it's got it at the top. It thinks I wrote it. But yeah, I'm going to have to... I wish I had have written it. Amazing book. Right, Charles Dickens actually wrote that. So I'm going to change the metadata for a start. And I can actually put quite a lot of metadata in there. There is endless metadata that I would like to put in there. So like it wasn't published then. It was published in December 1853, I believe. I don't know what it's going to make of that date. He quite likes that. Right, but what have I actually got at the moment? Well, if I double click it, it will actually open that up in PDF Expert because it's a PDF. And on my system, PDF Experts, I won't say we've gone on a bit, but Kim's run out of power. Right, because I've got PDF Expert to use my PDFs, that's why it's opening in there. But it's no good to me as a PDF. So what we need to do, let's move the chair a bit, what we need to do is convert it into something else. And that's one thing that Calibre can do. So there is a convert books option. And there is a drop down, and you can do bulk converts or you can do it individually. You can also create catalogues of books, so you could actually use this as a library. But we're just interested in one book, so convert individually. And it opens up your PDF in this conversion utility. First thing to think of, over on this side the input format is PDF, so it knows that. The output format you get to choose. So we have Mobi and we have DocX. You could unbake the cake with this, Mike. You could convert a PDF back to a DocX. You've got HTML. You've got all kinds of stuff. RTF, text files, zip files. And obviously the most important ones are ePub and Mobi. Mobi is what Amazon like and ePub is what everybody else likes. So ePub is a very good format. Very, very well supported. Now, first of all, you need to work down, well, next, once you've done that, once you've decided what your output format is, over on the left-hand side, you've got metadata, look and feel, and all of this. To get the very, very best out of this, work through them. So first of all, there's your metadata. So who's actually publishing it? And there's a whole range of publishers in there. But we'll put MacBites. And we've got a new publisher. You can tag it if you want. Some have got tags in. I'm going to leave that. Don't think we need that. Sadly, there was only one book, so it isn't part of a series. But if you do have a series in here, then it can be linked with it. What we're looking at there is the front cover. Now, we haven't designed the front cover yet. That's going to be unveiled on Tuesday. But when we have the front cover, we can actually add that here. If you don't have a front cover, it will sort one out for you, and it's not bad. So I'm going to leave that alone. Then we've got the look and feel. So you could decide to disable font size rescaling. This is how you make a fixed layout ePub. But generally speaking, it's best practice in an ePub to leave it to the person consuming at the end to decide what it looks like. So have a very light touch in here. Don't start saying, no, I want this font and I want it that size, because your readers won't thank you for that. They want it the way they want it. So I'm not going to disable the font rescaling. I want it to be rescaled to whatever somebody wants. But I can specify the minimum line height, which gives it a nice spacing. So 120 there. You can embed fonts if you want. And so you could actually go in here and choose a font and actually embed it if you want to. Again, this is the kind of thing you would need to do if what you want to create is a fixed layout ePub. And then you need to work across the top. So you've got character encoding and things. Most of these can be pretty much left alone. Unless your input is coming from somewhere that you haven't you haven't configured it and you can't configure it. You've got this PDF and it's absolutely awful, and you need to force some spacing into it, and you can't particularly do it. You can, change the M on Merry Christmas, but you don't want to grab 300 pages and go and redo them because it's a PDF. So you could use these options there. You can put in extra CSS. So if you're thinking about, lockdown, might fancy learning a new language, maybe CSS is a good idea because it's used in Scrivener, it's used in the emails, and it's used in here. And CSS, not difficult to learn. If you would like to know more about CSS, let me know in the chat. And you can even add rules where it's styled in a certain way and you would like it to be styled in a different way. So if it comes in with, it's blue, I'd like it to be green. Those are the kind of rules that I have in Scrivener for the emails. So we've seen a similar thing there. And once you've got the rules, you can export them and then reuse them down the line. Because what you've got here is a dialog box that you're going to work through every time you create a book. So you may as well make it easy, and future you will thank previous you. Right, then we've got, I'm not even going to pronounce it because Tracy will start. I think it's heuristic, but don't quote me, Tracy, don't quote me. This is where it's going to try and fix things. So it's automatic, it's like AI. I'm going to leave that alone and then go into the page setup. This is where you get to choose certain devices. So if you look down here, you've actually got devices. Unless there is a compelling reason to do that, try and be as generic as possible. The compelling reason to do that would be that maybe it's a school and you have 500 of a certain device and it's got to work on there, but it doesn't need to work anywhere else. In which case, go for your life. Find the device and make it compatible with that one. There's quite a long list of devices in there. Other than that, leave it alone because you don't know what device people have got. Depending on how it actually comes in, you can use what looks like regex to actually work out the structure of the document. But it's a good job we used Christmas Carol, because when you look at this, it's going to look and try and find chapters based on magic words. Chapter, a book, section, part. Prologue, epilogue. Yeah, this is all very well, but stave isn't a word. I could add it, but just be very careful. That's how it's doing it. It isn't actually magic beans. It's doing a very, very, very complicated regex replace. So I'm going to leave that alone as well. I'm not concerned about that at the moment. The niceties I'm going to deal with shortly. But then it can generate a table of contents. But obviously, again, it can only do that when it can detect chapters. And therefore, if you're using a strange word for a chapter, like a stave, because the thing is over 150 years old, you're going to need to add it. You can even at this point do a search and replace. So if we decided that Scrooge wasn't the right name for the man, we're going to call him, Mr. Brown, you could do a search and replace. And it will take regex to do that. Didn't Jonathan want regex?
He did.
Did we ever put that down? Put regex down in the post-show stuff, Mike. Right, then you've got a PDF input. So this is special information when the input is a PDF. There isn't actually much to say, but you could say you don't want the images. Then you've got special stuff for the output, which is ePub. So don't split on a page break. You don't want a default cover. I'm going to leave it all set to the default. Tracy, I could sense it. I could sense it, Tracy. So I'm going to leave all of that alone so we can see what we get on a default output. And then there is an option to debug, which again, not going to bother with. So I did make a few changes in here, but mainly to the metadata. Mainly the metadata. And then just click OK. And it shows you the jobs in the corner. And that one was pretty quick, but it's probably pretty quick given it's very, very simple and it's quite short by comparison to a lot of books. So, minimise that. Tell me you put it there. Oh no, I haven't exported it yet. Hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. Calibre. All right, getting ahead of myself. Okay, so what we now have is 2 copies of that book in here. But as you're looking at it, you're thinking, just a minute. No, it's not. there's still only 9 books. Well, because the meta is the same in the PDF and the ePub, that's 2 copies of the book. So if I look at like this one here, we can see we've got ePub and PDF as the formats that are available. We click on this one, we've got ePub and Mobi. Let's try something else. We've just got an ePub there. Go to a presentation book, it's just a Mobi. So this one, when we click on that, we have the original PDF, but we also have the ePub as well. But we don't have the ePub outside of here yet. So if we double click on it, instead of opening up the PDF, it's actually opening up the ePub, because CLICKABLE likes to keep you in Calibre if that's possible. So we have the front cover. Well, actually, no, we have the first bit of text. And while it's pondering with itself, there we go, we've got the rest of it. You will notice in here it's quite big. We had quite a big font. But all of this has come through, even though, and it's actually come through, remember where it came from? It came from Affinity Publisher, even though it doesn't support it. But it came via PDF. We don't have any dodgy page numbers because we knew enough to know to turn the page numbers off. And in here, we can choose how this looks. So I've just right-clicked on there. We can go backward and forward. We can do a search. So if we put a search in there and we put in Mrs. Dilber, the housekeeper, and we go through it, where's the next Dilber? And here we go. So it's good for research for that. And obviously you can change how this layout works. So we can do all of that. You can choose to reload it. Look at the table of contents, the reference mode. You can see the highlights. You can put your own bookmarks in it. And you can actually change the font size. So at the moment, that's 20. But you could take that down a bit. Oh, it looks a little bit better, doesn't it? Less like being shouted at. And what else have we got in here? You can go into full screen mode. I'm not going to do that. It might cut me off. So I'm saving it where it is. And you can print it if you want to print it. And in the preferences, you've got all of these options. So you could actually go in and determine how you want that to look. So maybe you want it sepia dark because it's kind of black. It's dark in the night time. And you don't want that staring at you looking like that. So that's easier to read later at night. And what I'm saying with this is, as a PDF, you take control. As an ePub, your reader takes control. Which is why ePub is popular, and it's supported so well and so broadly that, you know, why fight it? Just go with it, make an ePub. And that is how you create the ePub from there. But the ePub at the moment is embedded in Calibre. It's in my Calibre library. Right, how you get it out of here so you can distribute it to people. You make sure it's selected and you have the save to disk option. But I'm going to use the drop down. You can choose what you save to disk. So you could save it in a single directory. You could save only the ePub. You can save the ePub in a single directory. Or you can save a single format just to disk. So I'm just going to say, let's just save the ePub. Let's save the ePub and put it on the desktop next to its brethren, the PDF. Right, and what it does is it uses the metadata for this. So the PDF copy I put on there was that. But this has taken the metadata. Oh, it was 40. It was 43. I thought it was 53. Even older. I'll sort that out, Deb. Right, so it's taken the author and it's even flipped it round. So if you can imagine exporting 50 books, you'd get a folder for each author and the book would be inside each author's folder. So if I double click on that, it doesn't want to double click. I think the mouse is in a mood with me. Then we've got the book, A Christmas Carol. It even knows to put the A at the end, so it's filed under C. Then we go into it and we've got 3 things. First of which is the ePub. That's the actual ePub itself. It didn't look like that before. So when I did the last one, it didn't look like that. But that's the ePub itself. We then have the image, which is what it's using for the front cover, but we can change that. And then we have this OPF file, which is a little bit like an XML sidecar. It's carrying with it the meta of that. So I don't think we can get much of a preview of it, but it's the metadata and it's alongside the file. So if you've used XML sidecar files before, you have your photograph and then you have the XML sidecar file, which is it's a set of instructions telling the raw image what it should look like. So all of your configuration options, you've made it brighter and you've applied the levels and you've done this and you've done that, is in a text-based file. And when the two are in the same folder, the text-based instructions are applied to the image. And that's what you've got here. The meta is in the OPF. Okay, so that you've got your information in here. Now, this up here, that's the ePub. If I preview it, all right, it's giving me a preview of it, but it's not showing me what is inside the file. But if you look at the top, it says open with better zip. And what that is, an ePub file is not a single file. So if you think about a docx file, it's a single file. An ePub is not a single file. It's a collection of files which, when used together, provide the ability to change the size and all the rest of it. It's not a single file. If we want to see what's actually inside it, you could choose to open it with better zip. Now, obviously, I've got a tool to do this with. I've got better zip. But it does show me what's inside it. So here's our OPF. There's the cover that we've got. We then have the contents. So we've got some split contents there. We've got meta information. So bookmarks that we've put in there. We've got container, that's an XML file. An XML file explains what data should look like. So what it's doing is it's a self-descriptive file to tell anything that's trying to read it what type of file it is. So if you were describing like Lola, it would be XML version equals 1.0, container version blah, blah, blah. You would then have something in it that said, you know, Samoid. And then underneath it would have information to describe the Samoid. That's the basics of it. She's going to love that, isn't she, Lola? Then we've got MIME types in there. So all of this is meta information. But in here, we have CSS, which again, we can't see at the moment, but I could open so we could see it. So we have page styles. Do you know, I could swear Espresso was... Oh, that's the MacBites CSS. There's a lot of CSS running MacBites. There's very little in this one. This is it. There is a margin top and bottom of 5 points. That's it. But that is CSS. So that's the page style. Let's have a look at the actual style sheet itself. Espresso, if you're wondering, is a CSS editor, dedicated CSS editor. And you have some styles all coming from Calibre. You've got Calibre and Calibre 1, 2, 3 and 4. And that is what a chunk of CSS looks like. That's the style name with a dot. That opens it up, that closes it, and this is the instruction of what it actually looks like. So if we wanted to double the font size, we could put 2 EM in there, or we could put 1.5 EM in there, whatever we wanted. That is what CSS looks like. No, we don't want to save it. So what we're actually looking at here, this is what's inside the ePub file. You can open it with a zip reader. Some people go in here and start hacking around with it and making changes to it. So there is an XML page, nothing in there to see. But they would actually, if you spot a spelling mistake in a book and it's driving you insane, you really can't be doing with it. You could actually edit that from in here. You could go in there and change it. If you don't like 2 dashes, go in and change it and put 1. You could do that. And it would not harm the book at all. Those 4 bits there are the actual content. That's the cover, that's the meta, more meta, and this is the CSS, and that is what it actually looks like. I don't want to do that either. Okay, so we have our ePub. What I need to do after that is get back in there and sort it out for next week, for Tuesday. Got to finish it off. But that is how you get an ePub out of Affinity Publisher, despite the fact Affinity Publisher doesn't create ePubs. But that is more than usable. More than usable. I would create covers for it and everything. I will take you through that briefly at the end of next week when it's finished, just to show you that this is how it was all put together. There you go. Right. Talking of next week, when we will be 1 week away from new iMacs, we will be back with you. How is it December? I swear every month this year we've said, how is it November? How is it June? But really, Christmas? How is it November? But it is. So you will have had 4 days of mails, I'm trusting, by then. Now, we mentioned last week, it's such a shame Jonathan's asleep, isn't it? Because he would love this. We mentioned last week getting ourselves organised. Jonathan likes it when we get ourselves organised. It means there may or may not be a MacBites. I cannot be drawn on that when you least expect it. But we have decided what we're doing for the next 4 weeks, and we thought we'd share it with you. So we're starting next time with a look at Ulysses, but a specific aspect of Ulysses. Multiplayer Ulysses. I've had mails from 3 or 4 people saying that they want to, write stuff, but they want the partner to be able to look at it or whatever. And we do that, don't we?
We do.
So there is content within Ulysses for blog posts and all kinds of stuff that I would say to Mike, can you just proofread that? And I don't want to have to export it, because Ulysses is where the original is, and if there's spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, good job I'm not sharing it with Tracy. Oh, I'd never get anything out. I'd be so bad. Then we'd need to fix it rather than create a derivative and fix that. So we have forced Ulysses to be multiplayer. We'll show you that. Then we've got creating an artwork set in Affinity Designer, because the last section next week is actually putting together another document which is coming in the MacBites Advent calendar. This is all organised, not thrown together. Mike's doing Power BI measures. I could show how I made that graphic, because the one you sent me was blurry as anything. So I did another one. Can you tell off that, Mike, what was the trickiest part with the icon? It's only 3 shapes. It looks simple, but if you look at the first 2 on the left...
They're overlapping.
Well, they're overlapping, but that's fairly simple, isn't it? But one of the 3 corners are rounded and 1 isn't. Yeah. Oh, yes, it's all done. So Mike and I have been working on something called the Charts Project, and it's virtually ready to go. So that's what the last bit will be, and we'll be utilising the artwork that we created in Affinity Designer. So Sarah should love that, shouldn't she?
She should.
Because it'll be the 3 apps working together. Right, then on the 11th, forever known as iMac Day, although it could take another week, so, hold on to your hats with that. I'm showing you how I created a slide manager in Notion. I did not think I needed a slide manager. And then moved to PowerPoint. And I thought, slide manager is what I need. So I created it. Then we've got a complex artwork. So this is going to be multi-layers and all in use in Affinity Designer. Mike's doing an agile Gantt chart in Excel. And then I'm creating another thing for the MacBites Advent Calendar, which is the typography guide, which is going to use the artwork from the previous session. Do you see how this is all pulling together? It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. Now, the 18th could also be iMac Day. Any day between the 11th and the 18th could be iMac Day, but that's 107. Where I'm contemplating, but, I will take your temperature on this. Is this something you would like to see or something you would not be bothered to see? I'm thinking of looking at Adobe Bridge. It's totally free. And at the moment, we don't have much in the way of asset managers. And Adobe Bridge is free. Did I mention it was free? So be doing that. Then I'm looking at presentation video, as the graphic implies, both importing it and exporting it. Mike's doing data types, which is a shiny new toy in Excel. Oh, Tracy says I can ask Jonathan if she's very harsh. Oh, wow. Oh, I might do just that, Tracy. See how it goes. Because he's asleep at the moment, bless him. Right, then I've got some MacBites magic. Can't say any more about that, can we?
No.
But it's worth seeing. And unbelievably, the week after that, 4 weeks yesterday, because that is a Thursday, we're doing our traditional Christmas Eve show. on a Thursday. And on that, we're launching our preparing. Oh, what was the U for, Peter? Which one was the U for? Let me know. We're preparing for Notion 2021. So we'll be laying some ground rules for it, outlining what we're building and why we're building it. I'm also looking at Affinity Asset Management, or Asset Management in Affinity, depending on how you look at it. Mike's hoping to do this, aren't you? He's hoping to track Santa. But it depends, because, you know, Santa might be self-isolating.
I was going to say, yeah, he might not be out this year.
We don't know. But he may be tracking Santa. And then, this is Christmas Eve, remember, and then I'm going to be showing you the MacBites 2021 calendar. So that's the next 4 weeks. I'm still waiting to know what the OO was for, Peter. Let me know, because you're slightly behind me. It could have been for anything. Obviously, this week we are going live with Marooned. I know I need to update the calendar. Mike, put it on a post-it note. I will update that, because let's be honest, it's going to be Christmas at least.
A real post-it note, or
put it as the show thing. Right. That's fine. And I am totally, brace yourselves, totally, completely up to date on the feed. So if you've missed a show or you want to re-listen to Lady Pipes, I mean, who wouldn't? The typography guide. Oh, excellent, Peter. Then you can subscribe to the feed. It is, did I mention, up to date? Oh, that took me an age, but it's done now. I found a little bit of a faster way to do it, but it's quite a manual process. So on a Friday, I don't get a chance to edit the show before we're going into after hours. And on a Saturday, I literally cannot do it because we're recording it to the same file as we record by request. So I can't just edit the file while I'm recording the file. So by Sunday, I'm 2 behind. And then I think I'll do that in a minute. And before we know it, I'm 10 behind. But I will be endeavouring to make sure that tomorrow tonight's is done. And on Sunday, Saturday's is done. That's the plan. Hold me to it. All be my accountability partners. Poke me with a stick if it doesn't happen. Right, we love you guys. If you love us, can you give us a like? It really makes a difference with YouTube. Now, mailing lists. Yes, there is my VIP list, where you get first details of pretty much everything that I do, including courses and stuff. And that's where you will get notified of that. But that is not the list for the Advent calendar. The MacBites list is the list for the Advent calendar. So make sure you are subscribed by Tuesday and you will get a new mail into your inbox every day. What time did we say we were going with? Did we make our mind up? We want it. It always gets away from us in terms of by the time Neil's gets it, it's tomorrow. And then it does, like he says, day 1, but actually it's day 2. So we really need it, I reckon, about, would 11:30 our time work for everybody?
In the morning?
Yeah.
Should do.
I think 11:30 our time might just work for everybody. Apart from Alistair.
He's 13 hours ahead.
Well, I can't fix that.
No.
No, I can't fix that, I'm afraid. Maybe we should just send one to Alistair earlier. We're going to try it. It's going to be a set time, because if it isn't, there'll be trouble. So it's going to be a set time. Make sure you're subscribed. Say by Monday night, while we work it all out. These are the mails. So every day, you've seen it tonight. A lot of effort goes into it, isn't there? Every day, Advent calendar day, and within it, either freebies, special offers, stuff that's useful. Kim likes it. Kim's very appreciative. So if Kim likes it, you will all like it. We've decided. So, MacBites mail. macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. In the meanwhile, we are on Slack. We are carrying on the conversation on Slack, and you can join us on Slack at macbites.co.uk/Slack. Right. Can I declare myself a winner yet?
I think so.
I have to wait for Kim, you see. I have to wait for Kim. I think, Neil, your MacBook is looking forward to a break as well, which is very naughty of it. Is that green line a known issue?
No idea.
I used to have an issue with one of my iMacs, and it was a known issue, and Jane had the same issue. Jane got much better service than I did, Neil. She was in Perth at the time, and they sent an engineer out to her house to fix it. Me, I had to argue over it. The hard drive had gone, the screen had gone, and it took about 4 months in total.
Kim can't get into YouTube chat.
What's happened? Oh
Well,
no!
she changed device, didn't she?
She changed devices, and it's booted her out. Naughty, naughty. Right, thank you for that, Deb. I will make the change on that. I thought it was 53, but I will go with you. You are there on the Googles, and I am not, so I will go with you. Yeah, my screen, half of it, the screens have 2 cables going to them. So the screen itself is powered from 2 different cables, one on the right, one on the left. Hence, often the issue being right down the middle, because one half of it has gone, and that's what happened. And all it was a piece of solder on a cable. And if you kind of pushed hard enough, tried to squeeze the corner of the iMac together, the screen sprang back to life. But the second you let go, so what people were doing rather than send it back in the good old days when you could whip the back off, they put a piece of cardboard in it just to push the solder together, and it was fine for ages. I kept mine until the death, and by then the hard drive had gone as well. So I just sent the whole thing back and just said, fix it. And so ensued an Apple Care from repair from hell.
Somebody here suggests, this is from 2013, what can I do if a green line appeared in my MacBook Pro Retina display? Somebody says, try safe booting by holding the Shift key at startup. Then somebody says, reset the PRAM.
The good old reset the PRAM.
If neither of these work, take it to an Apple store.
They've missed out the sacrificing a chicken.
Kim, in the meanwhile, posted Elaine for the win. Can't get into the YouTube chat. She's posted that into the Brooklands by request on WhatsApp. So that'll be fun for all the Brooklands people.
This is going to be so funny. Excellent. Right, I'm going to get myself... no, I want the blank one. There's the blank one. There's the scoreboard. Let's whip it across. Woohoo! And I've got to get this in before he wakes up. But to be honest, she's called it. She's called it, so that's that. Right. Elaine is going to 22. 22. Poor Jonathan, and he had such high hopes tonight, didn't he? Right, a question on fonts. Let me whip back up there. You bought some new fonts, and for the first time, you've got the choice of TT or OFT. Which is the best? If you mean TTF, TTF is the older style. OpenType allows you to have more ligatures and stuff like that. So I would probably go for the OTF. The Mac can use either. Windows at one point couldn't, but I think it probably can now. So I would go for the OTF. The PRAM is like literally, sacrificing the tech chicken, isn't it? What I will say is, Neil, I had a Mac and it wouldn't turn on. It went through some kind of turn-on procedure repeatedly all day if you left it, but it never actually booted into the drive. So I turned it off and I left it. And I came back to it and I thought, right, I need to do something about this. So I dug out Mike's keyboard, which is cabled, because, don't try the Bluetooth as well, or it'll really get its knickers in a knot. So what I did was I put this keyboard on it that was cabled, and it takes 2 people to turn the Mac on and the other to do the PRAM thing, because it's all across the keyboard. So I had Mike doing the PRAM thing and I'm turning the thing on. And I went through the PRAM reset about 3 times, sprang back to life. I was absolutely dumbfounded. It sprang back to life. The issue turned out to be, once I got it back to life, I realised what the issue was. The issue was the hard drive was going. But it did boot me into it for long enough. Now, the only stuff that was on it that I was bothered about, that wasn't backed up, I could have recreated. And I'd ripped some DVDs so I could watch them on an iPad. And I got all of that data off. And then I sat there with it and I did a couple of updates, and it was okay with a couple of updates. And then it just went. Now, at the point it went, I tried to repair it by booting to another drive, and it said there were sectors it couldn't repair, and I thought, yeah, hard drive's on the way out. So I built up a system on a new SSD and just stuck that on the back, and it lives to fight another day. It still does its job to this day, that machine. But the PRAM did actually get it to the point it would boot, because without that PRAM reset, I wouldn't have been able. I tried to put an external drive on and then boot to a CD, and it wouldn't do that either. So the PRAM reset is worth trying. I know it's all a bit hocus pocus. And another one, what's the reset where you're supposed to unplug it?
Don't know.
You're supposed to pull the power cable out the back of the Mac and then it arcs, and then you leave it for a bit and then you plug it back in and it arcs again.
Oh.
And that's some other kind of reset. Is it a DM something reset? Again, when I'm desperate, I try the lot and it tends to come back. No problem at all, Peter. No problem at all. So it's all fingers crossed for Neil's laptop now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do agree with you, though. I mean, we were talking earlier. Yeah, Debbie had that issue, didn't you? SMC reset, that's the one. That's the one. We were talking earlier, weren't we, with Graham, that he's still using a 2011-inch iMac and it's fine. I have a 2011-inch iMac and it's fine. The hard drive's dead, but it boots quite happily to an external one that's stuck on the back with blue tack. It looks all right from the front, just don't look at the back. No, seriously, it's on a shelf. It's got a little shelf. But those 2011 ones are still going. Graham also had a MacBook Air from 2010, wasn't it? Coming up to 10 years old. Mine's 8 years old. They're going fine. But honestly, you had a laptop that died within like 3.5 years. What other ones have we had that have just gone? Well, I had 2 AppleCare repairs from hell to deal with. So they don't make them like they used to. Having said that, Neil, if you want a good laugh, the first Mac we bought was a 20-inch iMac. And we didn't buy it from the Apple Store. We bought it from an authorised reseller. And at the Christmas, so we'd had it about 7 months, I bought a 24-inch iMac and Mike took the 20-inch. The one programme we have ever watched together is 24, isn't it? And it was so important that we watched 24 that we would go downstairs to do it. This is unheard of. That was in the days where it was Mum's telly, actually, wasn't it? It wasn't ours. We used Mum's TV to watch it on BBC Two. 2001, I think it was. So there we were, enjoying 24 downstairs. Now, if you've ever seen 24, doubtless you'll be aware of the fact there's a lot of explosions in it, isn't there? and gunfire. So we're sitting there watching 24, absolutely glued to it. And there was this almighty bang. And I said, is that in the house? And Mike went, no, it's on the telly. And I went, I said, just check. Just check, it's not in the house. Well, I don't think we checked straight away. I think we were about maybe 5 minutes away from the end of the show. So we decided we'd come up at the end of the show. Comes up at the end of the show and the office is filled with smoke and this 20-inch iMac had exploded. We could still see the smoke coming out the back of it. So I said to Mike, I was right, it was in the house, just saying. But the thing was, did we have AppleCare? Oh, it was in the guarantee, I think. I think it was in the first year of the guarantee. I don't think I even had AppleCare. So I took it in, but at this stage, I knew the guys at the Apple Store really well. So I said to them, got this dodgy Mac. You didn't have to book or anything like that. I just took it in. And they said, are you sure there's something wrong with it? So I said, he said, what's the symptom? And like I say to you guys, you do not want an intermittent fault. At all. You never want an intermittent fault. So I said, it made an almighty bang and smoke came out the back. He said, have you turned it on since? I said, I didn't think it was wise. He said, probably not. We'll fix it. And off they went with it. And they fixed it. So, although they did make good ones back then, I don't know what was wrong with that one. We weren't in the room when it exploded. I've no idea what it was doing when it exploded. But it went with a rather large bang. Which is, here's hoping it never happens again. Let's put it like that. Now, Peter's still got a 2007 iMac running fine. That's it. Those were the days when the kit was great. And I really don't know what they're doing lately, but the kit is not great. I mean, this one that's been on my desk has been on my desk for 3.5 years. When it arrived, it was replacing one that didn't have a hard drive. It was running off an external hard drive. The one running off the external hard drive was quieter than this one. This one makes an almighty racket. The fans are on now, but I would expect that, given that I'm broadcasting and recording and audio recording and lots of other things. But even so, I couldn't believe that a machine that was like 4 or 5 years younger was so noisy by comparison. And when the new iMacs came out in August, I read the reviews, and what I was interested in wasn't the nano glass and all that garbage. It was like, does it run quiet? No, it doesn't. So somebody said it's no quieter than the last one. You know, the fans come on soon as look at it, which I wouldn't put past them to have done. So you want to buy an M1 so it's quieter. So when the M1 equivalent in the iMac comes out, I will get one, but I need to be absolutely certain that what I've got will work with all of the software I've got for a certain length of time, as does Mike, but Mike's situation is even worse than mine. He needs access to Excel, don't you? Which we discussed at the beginning. So that's why we decided on 2. The original plan was for 1. The original plan was for me to get a new one on account of the fact that mine is definitely struggling. At a minimum, it needs a rebuild, but it's at the stage where nothing lasts me more than 3 years. Honestly, it starts getting uppity at the 2.5-year mark because it's never off. It is on 24/7 and it's doing stuff 24/7. It's either crunching audio, crunching video, doing backups. Even when I'm not sat at it, it's doing stuff. So it was definitely time for a new one for me, and I took the decision, even if it was March, I'm not waiting till March. I've got Christmas, which is, I have a little bit more time, because that's our main holiday, to make sure that the machine is built up and in a usable state. I do not have time to do that in the middle of February, or March. So I would, if the M1s come out, I don't think I would get one straight away, or the equivalent, but I think the higher powered ones are going to take a bit longer, and I would expect it not to be before WWDC. But then what was going to happen was, when that M1 equivalent came out, I was going to get that and Mike was going to take the one that we would just have bought. But we took the decision that we might as well get 2, because it's mission critical for Mike to have access to the enterprise plugins for Excel. And you cannot have it, well, it sort of works. You know, well, it kind of works, but it doesn't do this. So it may as well be an Intel chip. What we would do with the second one, which would be mine, if I then moved to Apple Silicon, is that would then be a backup for Mike, and we'd probably put that in the studio, wouldn't we? That would be the plan. But, you know, we've not spent much on petrol this year, or holidays, or clothes, or nights out. So 2 iMacs, not a problem. Just need to sort the RAM out now.
Food bill's gone up, though.
Yes, the food bill's gone up. That's rather naughty, isn't it? It has. But never mind. And then we need to get the RAM, which I think last time I put an order in for about £1,200 worth of RAM?
Something like
that. Positively cheap this time, £888. Or with a 10% discount, or was it 5%? 5%. So that'll be another £44 off. It's worth having. It's worth having, definitely. So I just need to sort that out yet, which we will do today, which is now Saturday. Right, excellent. So did you like the look ahead? Is that something we should do more? Let us know that. We've not usually in a position to be able to do that, are we, Mike? It's usually like, what are we doing on Friday? This is Thursday. But if that's useful, then let us know, if you like to know. Clearly Peter liked to know that. Typography guide. Like the sound of that. So I will get on with that while I'm sorting out A Christmas Carol. Having persuaded it that it really did want to be an ePub. Oh, thankfully. Right, but for the moment, I'm going to say... Neil enjoyed that. He thought if that was a great, excellent. Right, we'll do that then. But for the moment, do we get to have some ice cream or something?
Could do.
Excellent. Do you know, we used to put pictures up of amazing cakes and things, didn't we? And now we don't leave the house. You're lucky if you've got like a Bourneville crumb. Don't even like Bourneville biscuits. Dad did, but I didn't. So, for the moment, I'm going to say good night from me.
Good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.